kind of say goodbye for a couple of days to take some time off for the holiday, and we've got a lot to do. All three of our local football teams won over the weekend, and all three wins mean different things. Utah State is going bowling. A good win for the Aggies against Fresno with a nice fourth quarter performance from Utah State. So 6 wins and a bowl appearance, year one on Bronco Mendenhall. Of course, a very cool thing for them. BYU was able to go on the road and beat Cincinnati as we thought that they would. It was a little closer than I expected. It got a little dicey, but I don't know that I ever felt like BYU was in danger of losing that football game. What does it mean for the Cougars? We'll get into it on the show today. And, of course, the Utes decided to make us all a little bit anxious, safe to say, on Saturday night at Rice-Eccles, or I should say Saturday afternoon at Rice-Eccles Stadium. The good news is for the fourth time this year, they went over 50 points on offense. And, we talked about this dynamic last week. Before the K-State game, before the Kansas State game, Utah was the 7th-ranked rush defense in the conference as far as rushing yards allowed per game. Well, K-State set a Rice-Eccles Stadium record, hung 472 yards on the Utes. Joe Jackson, not shoeless Joe Jackson, reference for a certain age, 293 yards on 24 carries. That's a K-State record and a Rice-Eccles Stadium record. And it seemed like every time you looked up at the TV or if you were watching in the stadium, somebody from one team or the other was breaking off this massive run. So the good news is Utah wins, which, of course, is the name of the game. The bad news is I don't know that the committee is going to be that impressed that you let a 5-5 football team roll into your stadium and run all over you. Utah fell in the AP poll to 14. Miami jumps them after Miami's win against Va Tech. So we'll see what the committee does tomorrow night. But the chances of Utah making it in, every single week we've kind of done this exercise. We'll do it today, going over the simulations, going over the rankings, going over the standings. And as we sit here today, it's not looking good if you're a Ute fan. Now, if you're a BYU fan, it's looking very, very good as they handle their business in what I perceive to be the final test of the year. 26-14. Again, it got a little dicey there in the second half. It was a one-possession game. L.J. Martin, beast mode for that kid. He's had a great year when he's been healthy. So the final game for BYU is UCF at home coming up next week. And, of course, the Utes will make the trip to Lawrence, Kansas to take on the Jayhawks. And I anticipate Utah winning that game as well. And a 10-2 season overall and 7-2 in conference is a really, really good year. There's no way around that. But the problem is, what really are you going to have to show for it at the end? And the chances are, if you're a Ute fan, probably not much. So the Saturday night win was fun, exciting, and a win nonetheless. It was fun to see Lander kind of seal it as a senior with an INT. But Utah had to beat K-State the way that they had beaten Baylor, Cincinnati, Colorado, Arizona State, et cetera, and that's not, unfortunately, what happened. So we'll get into the big picture landscape of college football. It's actually after the SEC gave all of us a double bird last week and we're unserious about competing. It's going to change this week. There are a lot of teams in action. Technically, it is rivalry week on a national scale, so we'll get into all the college football storylines on the program today with some good college football guests. Your Week 12 of pro football will wrap up tonight in Santa Clara at Levi's Stadium, where the 49ers welcome in the Panthers. So we'll kind of get you ready for that game. We'll do a little Monday Night Football preview. Shedeur Sanders is going to stay QB1 for the Browns, even though Dylan Gabriel has been cleared. The Utah Jazz welcomed in the Lakers last night, and it was a hell of a basketball game. The Lakers ended up winning, but the Jazz had a couple of opportunities to get that done. Was that the final time LeBron James will be in Salt Lake as a Laker? Who knows? But a 108-106 win for the Lakers. The Jazz have now lost 3 straight games, and they've lost 4 of their past 5, which is part of the deal, and it's okay. So, a little Jazz basketball, little college hoops on the show. BYU with another good win against the top 25 team. They housed Wisconsin on Friday night, and the Utes under Alex Jensen looking to potentially make some progress, and they need to prior to the start of conference play. It's a fun time of year, Thanksgiving week, a lot of college and pro football. We'll do a little NBA and college hoops as well with a good guest list on a Monday. We'll start things off with Scott Mitchell. Joins us more or less every Mondays during the college football season to break down Utah's, hopefully we're talking wins, and we are once again this week. And we'll preview the final game of the season and What does Scott think the landscape will look like in college football as far as the college football playoff committee goes and the rankings that will be released tomorrow? We'll bring those to you as we get them tomorrow afternoon. After Sly stops by, we will let you hear from Coach Witt. Coach Witt, maybe he even bleeds blood. Coach Witt actually showing some emotion after the game on Saturday, something you don't see from a stoic coach like Kyle, but we'll let you hear from Witt coming up. He addressed the media earlier. Stevenson Sylvester, one of the, and this is for you, Muss. Are you listening? Muss folk who apparently don't know who Stevenson Sylvester is. He might be the best linebacker who's ever played at Utah. So get familiar, young kids. Like, you're all raised on YouTube. Freaking put Sly's name in it. Okay, let's watch some highlights. What is it? Gen Z? Are these kids Gen Z? Is that what it is?
The thing that I got to remind myself is these kids were, some of them, not born yet.
Were you born when Michael Jordan was playing for the Bulls?
Barely. I was an infant.
Well, have you ever seen highlights of Michael Jordan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
You can watch highlights, children.
It's inexcusable. If you're a Ute fan, you got some studying to do if you don't. To be clear, I don't know like how many, like any real diehard Ute fan probably knows who Sly is, but the ones who don't, I'm sure, few and far between in the must. Those who don't, get watching some tape. Get
off the TikTok or whatever and go over to YouTube and type in Stevenson Sylvester's name. I know all of the must listens to the show live. They probably stream while they're in class.
It's big in AM radio.
Yeah. So go ahead. You're probably in like econ. You don't need any of this knowledge anyway. Drown your teacher out, turn the sound down, and then just go over to YouTube and watch some Sly highlights while you're learning useless things that you're not going to use in real life anyway.
The drive is pretty much a sports econ class.
It is
sometimes. So,
and for some reason, your sound in my ears blasting. I don't know why, but let's see if we can fix that. So that's Porter Larson. He's the producer of this program. Our friend Amy Donaldson is going to join us from KSL. Now my volume's down. I'll turn this up. My friend Amy Donaldson is going to join us live in studio for an entire hour at 4 o'clock. So we'll go Scott Mitchell, little sound from Coach Witt, Stevenson Sylvester. We'll do Amy Donaldson here in studio for an entire hour on the 4 o'clock, and then we'll kind of get to the 5 o'clock. We'll say goodnight for Monday Night Football. Me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, hello. Happy Monday. Happy Thanksgiving week. And that guy who was on the sidelines for Utah K-State. Look, man, honestly, we have been talking about this all year, and it's not anything that I brought to the forefront because Witt has talked about it. Morgan has talked about it. Sly did a really great breakdown over the weekend on TV. Like, this is a defense that has missed tackles all year long. So the win is great, but K-State, a 500 football team, rolls into Rice-Eccles and nearly hangs 500 yards on you. That's not a great look.
I mean, a stadium record, too. No one in Utah history or opponent history has ever did what Mr. Jackson did on Saturday. It was remarkable to watch. It was, for the most part, an anomaly, an outlier. But those don't happen without you not, playing good football. Those don't happen without you missing a bunch of tackles and missing gap assignments, which were happening every other play, it seemed like, on Saturday. And it was, I thought, really cool because two of the guys who I thought struggled the most on Saturday were Lander Barton and Teo Johnson, who came up huge in big moments, right? And to have them kind of come back from what was not a good performance is some impressive stuff and a testament to that team. So really fun, really entertaining, but as you said, Spence, some concern with that defense that we have talked about a little bit throughout parts this year.
Yeah, no doubt, but you do get the win, so technically you kind of stay alive still, but it's not looking great as far as Utah's chances to qualify for the CFP. So they still have a pulse, but it is barely there. We're going to go through some scenarios on the show today. Our first guest will be the aforementioned Scott Mitchell, but before Scotty stops by on a Monday afternoon, courtesy of our good friends at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
Holiday season is here. It's the best time of year for sports. We've got bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which game to watch, There's one place where it feels good to be right, and that's with our friends on Prize Picks. Bottom line is this. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can win up to 2,000 times your cash. They've got a new feature alert. Prize Picks now has early payouts. So if your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out on those winnings before the game even finishes. My fantasy football team is cooked, but with Prize Picks, I don't have to wait until next year's draft. Prize Picks lets you play fantasy football every week. You can pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections every week. No draft required. Step number 1 is you download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is always good to be right. All right, so a nervous, anxiety-filled Saturday afternoon at Rice-Eccles Stadium. The crowd was awesome. People showed up for senior day, so that's always good to say goodbye to these young men who have given so much to this program and have meant so much to this community. So it's just certainly cool to see that. And as the game began, it just didn't look great, certainly defensively, as Utah was missing tackles. The gap assignments weren't great. The communication wasn't there. I'm excited to have Sly on today. Sly did a really good breakdown on TV over the weekend about exactly why this defense, typically known in these parts as one of, if not the preeminent defensive football team in the Western United States, typically is much more stout than it has been, honestly, all year long. Saturday afternoon was more of a microcosm of kind of what we've seen from Utah football, who before Saturday's game was the 7th-ranked rush defense as far as yards per game allowed in the Big 12. They've been excellent against the pass for the most part. Now, the Baylor kid got off a little bit. Sawyer Robertson threw for a bunch of yards. But when you're getting your ass kicked and you just decide to air it out, you're going to find ways to make plays. I'm not that concerned about it because Utah does do a good job of getting to the quarterback, sacking the quarterback. Avery Johnson didn't do much through the air. John Henry Daly with another couple of sacks, although John did leave the game. Nothing official there. Haven't heard anything. But it was on the ground where Kansas State was just gashing the Utes. Now, the good news is Utah's rushing game continues to be phenomenal, basically unstoppable. Best in the Big 12, one of the best in the entire country, and that offensive line has bailed this defense out quite a bit. It's really an interesting juxtaposition based off of what we've seen for basically 2 decades under Witt, right? Like, this has always been a program that has been an offense away from being a conference contender, whether it was Mountain West, Pac-12, or now in the Big 12. And now it's kind of the other way around. But ultimately, the bottom line is you got it done. You know, it was interesting when K-State went up 12 with 7 minutes left, and Witt talked about this after the game. A lot of fans got gone. A lot of fans got up, started to leave the stadium. And, I never tell a fan how to fan. Maybe you want to beat the traffic. But the interception, are we calling it a pick 2, Porter? Is that what we call it because it was worth 2 points?
Correct.
Okay, so Tao Johnson, the interception, when he ran that back, I just went, okay, hold on. That's not nothing, all right? Like, obviously there was plenty of work to do, but you're doing some quick math. You're like, no, wait a second. There's time here. They have timeouts. Got to get a stop. And I don't know how many people thought they would be able to get a stop based off of what we had seen for basically 3.5 quarters, if not a little more. But defense does the job. They step up, and that Devin Dampier run will go down in Utah football lore. He wasn't able to get into the end zone, but without that run, that win certainly seems like it's out of reach. Devin did stamp it with an exclamation point with his own touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had 2 touchdowns through the air. A couple of really, really nice throws. The throw to the Larry Simmons kid was big time. We saw more dynamic playmaking from Bird Ficklin, who had 3 rushing touchdowns of his own. And Utah's rushing game and their offensive line saved the day. Now, unfortunately, as we talked about last week, for Utah football, as a result of the 2 L's they suffered this year to 2 teams that are in the top 11, in order for them to keep the committee's attention and in order for them to potentially get into the CFP as an at-large, close wins were not going to do. Now, they handle their business. Colorado, Cincinnati, and Baylor, they curb-stomped all 3 of those teams, right? And Cincinnati, they gave BYU a bit of a fight, but that's probably the best win on Utah's schedule, and that's not enough of a gem on a resume to move the needle at all. So if the score was 51-10 or 51 to, even if it was like 51-28, okay, mission accomplished. But the fact that it was 51-47 and you really needed a miracle to get it done down the stretch, I can just promise you the committee's going to go, wait a second. You let a 500 football team roll into your building and nearly hang 500 rushing yards on you? Like, wait, you got the win? That's awesome. It's not really going to move the needle. And so you simply just need a tremendous amount of help that, honestly, as we sit here on this Monday, doesn't feel like it's very possible. The CFP rankings will be released tomorrow. Utah fell one spot in the AP poll, and Miami jumped them as a result of Miami's decisive win over Va Tech. BYU stayed at 11. They did not move up or down as a result of a good win. I don't think I'll say the same thing about BYU's win against Cincinnati as I just did about Utah's. It's not a bad win. I mean, Cincinnati at one point was in the top 25. That was a road test for BYU where they're traveling a couple of time zones. But it was a little dicey, right? BYU 10-7 at half. It was a one-score game in the fourth quarter before LJ broke off his run. And how about a little love for LJ Martin today? 32 carries, 222 yards, an average of nearly 7 yards per carry with a couple of touchdowns. Bear Bachmeier set the BYU freshman record for rushing touchdowns. He now has 11. I think that was Taysom's record that he broke. It may have been Zach Wilson's, but that record now belongs to Bear as a freshman. And BYU's defense did what BYU's defense has done all year, certainly against the run. Cincinnati could not run the football. 23 carries, 87 yards, an average of less than 4. Sorsby was okay, 25 of 38, 300 yards, had a couple of touchdowns, did have that one interception. But BYU stays pat at 11, while Utah drops one spot to 14. We'll go over the advanced metrics coming up in a little bit as far as what the S&P Plus is saying and the Football Power Index and where Utah may or may not be coming up tomorrow when the CFP rankings are released. But nobody in front of them lost over the weekend. And a lot of these teams in front of them played unserious competition. But Oregon got their win, and that essentially puts them in the pathway to lock in their fate coming up this weekend. There are a lot of good games on the slate this weekend. Last weekend was a bit of a dog because of the annual SEC. We don't have to be serious about football during Week 13, which is really weird. But we'll get to more of this. Scott Mitchell is going to join us. We'll let you hear from Coach Witt. Interesting snapshot from Kyle Saturday night after the game when talking about the seniors. He became emotional, which isn't something you see very much, leading a lot of people to speculate that Saturday was the final home game for Coach Witt in Salt Lake at Rice Eccles. Only time will tell. See what Scott has to say. Got Stevenson, Sylvester, and Amy Donaldson. It's a busy Monday show, but it's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. Your pro football weekend comes to a close tonight in Santa Clara, where the Niners are taking on the Panthers. There's a new favorite to win the Super Bowl, and that is the LA Rams. We'll do some pro football later. Utah Utes improved to 9-2 with a anxiety-inducing afternoon at Rice-Eccles Stadium, 51-47 over K-State. 6-2 in conference play. The final game coming up on Friday against the Rock Chalk, Kansas Jayhawks. Scott Mitchell, Monday afternoon. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. So I appreciate the time. Now look, we talked about this last week. The margin of error for Utah football is extremely small as a result of simply losing two games to two very good teams nonetheless. But look, you get the win, bottom line, 51-47. But, I want you to tell me what you think. My guess is the College Football Playoff Committee will look at it and say, yes, you got the win, good job. But how do you let a 500 football team roll into your building and hang 500 rushing yards on you, right? So what do you think the conversation will sound like this week when the committee meets regarding the Utah Utes?
I think if anyone has played football and knows it, there are just certain weeks that you win ugly. It doesn't matter who the opponent is, how well they've done. If you were making the case for Kansas State, they've lost several of their games by slim margins. They're one of those teams that all the breaks just didn't go their way this year. They were very good. They were a much better team than I thought they were, and they just kind of handed it to this Utah defense. Really, I went back and watched a bunch of tape on it, and I was like, oh my goodness, they really manhandled. And Utah did a very poor job up front. And I think I know the reason why about handling the run, but man, they just look terrible. And so I think if the bottom line is you win, and that's what BYU is doing. It's not pretty all the time. It's not necessarily overwhelmingly convincing, but they're winning, and there's so much that needs to go into. Hey, this is hard. You're just not going to blow out everybody you play, and especially in the Big 12. It's competitive, and I think one of the biggest things I was impressed with over the weekend was how Kansas State really came to play, and they're so much better. Now, that being said, unfortunately, these are subjective decisions everyone's making. So, you can get into style points and how they looked, and was it dominating enough, and was it this and that and whatever, and that's because we're guessing. no matter what, you're just guessing at who's really good and who really isn't. And does Utah belong in the college football playoffs? I could certainly make a case for it, but from the perception of a national audience, you're going to have people that are ahead of you lose another game, like in Alabama and in Notre Dame and in Oklahoma. It might change if Oregon goes to Washington and loses. I just think it's really, really hard and really slim for Utah to get any juice or any excitement from the playoff committee unless that actually happens.
All right, Scott, you just brought up something very, very interesting, so we're going to do a little exercise. Tell me if you're ready. Are you ready, sir?
I'm always ready.
Scott Mitchell, former quarterback for the Utes, longtime NFL player as well. I have you on speaker in the conference room of the CFP committee currently. You just said you could make a case that Utah should be in the college football playoff. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, one of the things I think people need to realize is with NIL, with the transfer portal, the power of football is not so centrally located anymore. And so in Alabama, who kind of, cornered the market, isn't necessarily as good as it used to be. And I think you need to get used to other conferences or other teams like the Indianas. And so you can't get into this prejudice of the SEC and the Big Ten as just deserving of all of these bids. And you really have to spread it around. If you were to look at like Utah, they lost to Texas Tech, very close game to the very end of the game. If you look at the BYU game, outgained them, had some turnovers, a very close game, could have gone either way. and it was with a quarterback who is really kind of electric and exciting if he's healthy. and when he's healthy, and he kind of thumbed his nose at us on Saturday night with his performance against Kansas State. I mean, Devin Dampier showed up and showed up big and showed up in the big moment. And I think that was the question mark. Could he win a close game? Could he bring his team back and do what it took to win? And I think yes. And so you've got a very solid program in Utah that's only losses have been to teams that are going to go to the college football playoffs more than likely. And I think Utah is as deserving as anyone to get there if you'll get past your prejudices of some of these other teams.
Prejudices of some of these other teams. I need you to elaborate on that portion of your argument, Scott.
Well, it's the the SEC just gets all these automatic. I mean, look at the rankings in the country. The SEC I think has what most of the teams in their conference. They play fewer conference games. They play very easy schedules. Ole Miss has not played anyone all year. The only team they played, Georgia, they lost to. Georgia, is still a pretty good team. I'm not convinced of Alabama being a very good team. Just watching them against Oklahoma, and I'm not convinced that Oklahoma. I don't think these teams are any better than Utah, and the prejudice comes from this whole idea that the SEC and the Big Ten just have the better program. I mean, outside of really 2.5 teams in the Big Ten, who really is there? I'm not even sure anyone knows who the best team in the SEC is. And I don't think even the SEC is like in love with the fact that Texas A&M is their best team. I think that's kind of an odd thing. And you looked at how long they held on to Texas, who is just average at best this year. But they just get the benefit of the doubt. They're always in the conversation, and they're looked through a lens of, I believe, a prejudice towards them because they're just in the SEC. But the conference, I believe, that's had the most competitive teams in it from top to bottom is the Big 12 this year.
All right. And there's no way of knowing the answer to this, so we're going to play a fun hypothetical. Utah and Alabama are playing this Saturday, we'll say, in Arlington, in Texas, neutral field, Jerry's World. What does Scott Mitchell think the Vegas line would be in this hypothetical matchup?
Utah's very explosive offensively. Up until this last week, I'd say they're pretty competitive defensively. I think it's a ball game. I think it's, and I'm not an odds maker on this at all, but I would give it a, and again, they're just gonna shift it towards the SEC. So maybe it's a 3.5 point line, maybe it's a 6 point line, 6.5 point line, somewhere around there for Alabama. I would say that.
Oh, okay, interesting. I would gently disagree with you there. I think they would probably favor Bama by close to double digits. That would be my guess. I understand your point. I mean, look, And I will see to you. You're the one that played high-level college football and in the NFL, and my career was done at Pop Warner. I was a quarterback. I was pretty good, but I, didn't play for anything that mattered after the age of 15. So you're the expert here. I do think, Scott, when you look at metrics such as, NFL talent, players that are drafted into the NFL, and the historical head-to-head matchups that typically go the way of the Big Ten and the SEC over, the Big 12 and the ACC, does that happen every single time? No. That's why Arizona State last year, if they would have been able to beat Texas, it would have been a massive win for the conference. But I just think most of the metrics that the committee utilizes, they do show that most of the best football is played in the Big Ten and the SEC. Would you push back on that?
I know those statistics. I know the facts. I know that from top to bottom, yeah, they have more talent. There's no question about that. But I don't think it's like every year these teams always have the best teams. One of the teams that I just really have a hard time with is a team like Ole Miss. They haven't played anybody all year, and I think in college, And I do think teams, because it's not like you got to win against them every week. You just have to win one game in the playoffs, and I think there's a possibility of doing it. I think it can be fairly competitive. I think sometimes, and here was my experience, okay, from guys like these big time programs. A lot of times a guy would be drafted, like a guy at my day was like a guy from Florida State or some of these other schools. And they'd always showed up, and what they'd done in college was they just out-athleted everyone because they just had more talent. But as far as skill, as far as game plan, strategy, and they would get to the pros, a lot of them didn't do well because in the pros everyone is good, and they haven't learned how to really develop their craft, or they weren't really sound fundamentally, and a lot of guys struggled, and there were guys that, of course, got to that level, but a lot of them didn't. And the ones that really became masters they became, some of the best players ever. But not everyone that comes out of these big-time programs ends up being a great pro. And a lot of times because they've just gotten this habit of, hey, we just show up and we're just gonna out-athlete you to wins. And most of the time they could do it because they did have the better talent.
So, look, your Ole Miss example, they're 7th in the country in strength of record. They beat Oklahoma in Norman. They nearly beat Georgia in their place. They beat LSU earlier in the year, and they're coming off a win against Florida. So they're 7th in the country in strength of record. But when it comes to, I think the point that you made earlier that I would agree with you on is oftentimes, like, the Big Ten clearly has, 3 really, really good football teams this year. The SEC, I think Georgia's good. I think Georgia's playing really good football at the right time of year. The Bama thing has been a little bit up and down. They're somewhat one-dimensional. Georgia is coming off an unserious opponent, so what did we learn about them? They did undress Texas. Where I will kind of cede your point a little bit is oftentimes the SEC and the Big Ten might have 3 or 4 really, really good football teams, and then that just makes everybody else assume that the entire conference is awesome. So the depth portion of your argument might have a little merit, Scott, as far as that goes. Hello?
Yes, hello.
You there? So do you understand the spirit of what I'm saying? Like, it does feel like maybe these conferences are top heavy.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. I've always felt that way. And you talk about, okay, you said Ole Miss's strength of schedule, and you listed Florida. I don't think Florida's very good.
No, it's the strength of record, which is the committee's metric, and they're ranked 7th in the country, Scott. That's just where they're ranked.
Right. But I just don't think they're that good. And the schools you mentioned, LSU, LSU and Florida are hiring new coaches because their programs stink right now. And maybe in a few years they'll be good again. But I absolutely feel that there is a consolidation of power or strength or teams at the top of those conferences. I actually don't think that's the case anymore. I think NIL and I think the transfer portal has kind of taken away from the depth and the quality of players that they have at these schools. I've never for the life of me understood why a team like Alabama would ever have to go out in the transfer portal. It's like, just go to your second team. Just go to, like, you're just stockpiled with these players. And you saw when Nick Saban, before he left, he started complaining about this. And I believe that trend is going to continue. I think the power, the talent level will be spread across a whole lot more conferences because these guys are realizing it's so much better to go and play and to play early. And the more reps, the more opportunities I get early on, I'll still develop myself if I have the talent to go to the NFL. The talent will find me in the NFL. And I just think that tradition of going to these schools doesn't mean as much to these players. And if they can get some money in college, and Alabama doesn't have all the money in college, and neither does Georgia, neither do any of these schools. But across the board, there's money to be spent on players to go other places and play. And I think that changes the dynamic of where the power structure is in college football.
And I do think it also has affected the depth of a lot of these top-end teams because, to your point, I think it was Lane Kiffin who is having an excellent week. He's certainly winning at life. I think Lane Kiffin about 2 months ago gave an interview, and he was talking specifically about the SEC, where once upon a time, we'll use your Bama example in this context. Like if Saban lost a defensive end, he'd be like, oh, we're good. Just go dust off that 4-star that's sitting over there and have him come in. But the depth of these teams, even the top end teams, it's not what it used to be, Scott. And I actually think in a way it's affected Utah, which is why we saw early on Witt decide to play, Lander and Smith 2 ways. And that's been done away with because injuries pile up. You need them to stay healthy. It just makes it really hard to build up any football program anywhere in the country where once upon a time you didn't have the ability to pay these kids. So why not go to Alabama, even if there are 2 4-stars in front of me, because I'll just wait for my turn and then go to the NFL when I have the ability to do it. Now, if you're a 4-star sitting behind a 4-star, another coach, Sark's going to call you in Texas and say, you don't have to sit there. Come play for me and I'll pay you $2 million. Like, I think it makes it really hard to build a program with legitimate depth no matter where you exist.
So that leads me to what I was going to say about why Utah struggled against the run, stopping the run with Kansas State for exactly what you're talking about. They had to change their practice structure this year because of the limitations of the number of players you can have. So they haven't been as physical this year. And in not being as physical, they're just not as adept or consistent about stopping the run. It's famous, these bloody Tuesdays and bloody Mondays and the physicalness of those running periods for Utah. And any team you talked about how physical and how tough and how hard it was to run against this Utah defense. And you haven't seen that. And on top of it, you've seen missed tackles. And so you see that in the development of your team or the readiness of your team, it's not as good. And I think that's that's one of those maybe unintended consequences of this NIL. But the other thing, like for an Alabama, their first team, their second team, they're all like NFL guys, or a lot of them are. And if you're practicing against that talent every day, you're just going to get better. And when you don't have the same talent to give you the same look or to give you the same push or to work against, then you're not going to be as good as a team. And so there are these ripple effects of things that impact it. Aside from just having the depth, it's just how you practice and who you practice against changes. And so you're not quite as sharp or good or dominant as that you've been in the past, simply because you don't have the bodies there to condition you, to develop you like you did before.
So, Scott, several people have drawn the conclusion that as a result of Kyle becoming emotional on Saturday evening after that win, it's got to mean that, and it was interesting, Scott, when he got emotional, because he said, the seniors, and then he said with their final time at Rice-Eccles, and that was the sentence that got him. Yeah. When he said final time at Rice-Eccles. So, I think it's somewhat reasonable to maybe surmise that as he said that sentence, did it make him realize that it was also his final time at Rice-Eccles? I have no idea, but did you read the room the same way a lot of people read that room?
So Sean O'Connell asked me this question earlier, and I hadn't watched Kyle's press conference, and I wasn't aware of that until after I was talking to him, because I said, he's a football coach. These guys can never quit. They can never give it. It's just too hard. Maybe he's still gonna, because he thinks he's got a pretty good team and has a pretty good nucleus coming back next year, and take another shot at getting to the college football playoffs. And there was a part of me that felt like he's pretty energized about the season. But when I saw that, I was like, no, I don't think he's coming back now. And I kind of am in that camp now. So I've changed my mind literally in the last 3 hours of the day, simply because Coach Whittingham's gone through a lot of senior days. And he's never gotten emotional about senior day. Like he's always talked about it from a standpoint of saying the same exact thing, very robotic, very unemotional. These guys have been great in the program, and he's never gotten sentimental about it ever. And I really think, it was the same thing about him coming back next year. He made a comment, about, I can't go out on that note. And it was like, oh, so you were going to go out, but you're not going to now. And I think it's the same kind of thing. He's not going to come right out and tell you, but every once in a while, the shield cracks and you peer behind and see the human side of him, and you get a real glimpse into what he's really thinking and what he's really feeling. And I think that was one of those moments. And so, and I have no information. I don't know anything. This is just me, just trying to speculate off of trying to read between the lines type of thing. But yeah, I would not be surprised at all if this is the last year for Kyle.
All right, let's just operate in the space for a moment and just surmise that he is retired at the end of the year. Give me your thoughts on the dynamic of Morgan sliding over a seat and how much will, best laid practices be maintained based off of him cutting his teeth under Kyle for as long as he has, and how much of his own stamp you think he's going to try to put on the program?
Well, I hope he puts his own stamp on it, because I think to be successful as a coach, you got to really have a conviction of who you are, and that authenticity is what really resonates with people and players and the fan base. And if he's trying to be something he's not, that's just trying to be Kyle Whittingham. That's a huge mistake. And there's a lot of similarities between them, but Morgan is just this fiercely competitive guy. And there's a funny thing that happens when you're kind of given control of things. You develop a little bit more. You now have an opportunity to really lead the whole entire organization. And some defensive coordinators or coordinators in general just aren't comfortable with that. And some are, and the ones that are successful are. A lot of coordinators end up being head coaches. You look at, Kyle gave Morgan confidence and control of taking over that defense, and Morgan's really owned it, and he's done a lot of things, maybe even more creative than when Kyle was doing the defense before. And so I think he's taken it to another level. But the thing that I think it works really well with Morgan is he's a player that played in the program, and being a Utah man means as much to him as probably anyone who's ever been in that program. And I think he's done a great job of being a big part of the culture of these players after the game. They sing the song. And I think Morgan is deeply entrenched in that, and that buying into the culture. And you look at Kenny Dillingham and what he's kind of doing at Arizona State, and you look at Jonathan Smith and what he did at Oregon State, the former alumni that have come back to their programs, and they're really good coaches to start with, but they really get people to buy into the Utah culture. And I don't think there's a better person for that than Morgan. And on top of it, continuity has been a big key to the success of Utah. Kyle Whittingham not taking another job, not looking at it as a stepping stone job, but looking at it as a destination. And I think Morgan would look at it the same way. A lot of people have tried to woo Morgan away, and he doesn't want to go. And that was part of the whole coach in waiting thing was to kind of lock him in long term. And I think it's a real formula for a team like Utah to have someone who's really bought into the program, someone who wants to stay and be in the program long term. Really helps the program to probably reach heights that maybe it wouldn't if it was just a program that a guy like Urban Meyer came to every few years and then left and went somewhere else.
Kansas, final opponent for Utah. And since this is the only time we'll chat with you this week, Scott, I'll kick the tires on this. I feel like if you looked up the term or the word mediocrity in the dictionary, you would see Kansas like right next to it. They don't do anything very well, and they don't necessarily do anything horrendously. They're not really ranked low or high in anything. When you look at offense, passing, if they do anything somewhat well, it is through the air. But Utah, of course, has been great against the pass, and they get to the quarterback really well. They're mediocre with their rush attack. They don't really stop the rush well. They don't really stop the throw well. They're decidedly average. Utah's, I think, a 12.5-point favorite in a final game of the year. So you think there'll be any uncomfortable moments, or does this feel like one the Utes are going to handle pretty easily?
I always want to say you have to respect every game. It's the last game of the year. It can mean different things. People can just be checked out. I was really impressed with Kansas State. They were very much in the game. Kansas is really trying to find itself as a program. They seem, for years they were a dumpster fire as far as football goes, and they've really tried to turn a corner. They've invested a lot of money into their program. So I think for me, I would expect to have a team that's like, we're going to finish out the season. We're going to finish it out on a high note. It's very important for us moving forward. And so you expect the best from them. When you're not getting, you have a shorter week, you're not going to get any surprises with them. Utah's going to know what they're looking for going into this game, as Kansas is as well. But I just get a sense that Utah's going to be really upset about this last week, and there's a sense of urgency from that defense. There's just too much pride there in what they do to accept that, and so I expect a much more stout team defensively. And with as prolific as this offense has been, I don't see any reason why Utah should even come close to losing. But it is the Big 12. Crazy things happen, and you just got to take care of business.
Last thing, Scott, I'll set you loose on this. Let's just look ahead to the offseason a little bit. The transfer portal window will open in January. It's the only one now, which is good. They have some regulations around the chaos that was pretty, running pretty rampant for a number of different months. I'm going to do another exercise, okay? Scott Mitchell, I have you on speakerphone. We have the coaching staff here, and we're going to let you know that our offseason budget is this, okay? We have this amount of money to spend on players. What positions of need would you like to see Utah football fill this offseason prior to the start of the year next year?
Well, it's certainly retaining what you have on offense. So you really want to retain a Daniel Bray, a Wayshawn. Yeah, you've got to figure out the quarterback situation, and you're probably going to have to make a choice. You're not going to get to both those guys, so you've got to decide on a quarterback. I would go with a guy who's going to have a bigger upside in Bird Ficklin. I just don't think they can keep both of those guys around. And I would just hate to kick myself down the road to watch Daniel Bray go somewhere else and just explode onto the scene, which could very possibly happen. So I would have. That's a tough decision, and I would make it. And Utah's made that tough decision before, picking a younger guy with more upside. BYU did it this year. They came in and picked a true freshman over all the other competition they had, and it paid off massively for them. You've got to, I really like the secondary, and I think they'll probably keep most of them around. Blake Cotton is gonna graduate, but they'll have a lot of that around. Jackson Benny's really evolved. Again, I would go out and I would find if you look at the Texas Tech model where they got these guys that just really wreaked havoc on the edge, and finding a really good edge player. And I think you don't have to go out and spend money on your offensive line, because the guys coming into it are very talented. They don't have a lot of experience, and so they're kind of flying under the radar. These are guys that you're probably going to get fairly inexpensive. Like, they had to pay a ton of money to the two tackles a year ago just to keep them in school. And I don't think you're going to have to do that this year. So you're going to spend money on a quarterback. You might want to find an elite type of receiver. a rush end. And, but everything else I think is still, it's under the radar enough where you're not going to have to spend a ton of money on it. You might have to spend money on a guy like Smith Snowden, and I think that's worth the investment. But yeah, it's about guys that can make plays, and it's about that quarterback position. And you're going to have to spend some money on it, and I think Bird Ficklin is worth the investment.
Scott, thank you, my friend. Appreciate the time on a Monday. Have a great week, and if I don't talk to you, have a happy Thanksgiving. Okay.
Thank you. I really enjoy these conversations. By the way, I love your questions, Spence, and it's really enjoyable. So thanks.
No, I appreciate that. That's kind of you. We always appreciate your time. The great Scott Mitchell joins us Mondays throughout the college football season. Porter, you know what I like about Scott? He doesn't have much time, so he just gets right to the point.
There you go. Well. Down and dirty.
That's a spot that we're running on the station for listeners that might not understand that inside joke. He doesn't have much time, so he gets straight to the point. Scott Mitchell.
Some people may not know that you voice all those. So
that's not my voice. Do you have the talent of impersonations? Are you able to, like my little brother, for some reason, my little brother Ben, ever since he's like 2, he can do any accent. Like his Cartman from South Park is spot on.
I will say I kind of, but it's something I have to work on, and it's not something I've done much. Like accents and whatnot for sure, but if it were like a character, give me a minute, and I can maybe get a voice somewhat, but nothing that I do enough to actually do that. Sorry.
I bet you could give us like a good cowboy, like a good Western drawl, yeah? Like my John Dutton from Yellowstone, that's elite.
Well, if I go to like certain parts of the country, they think I have like a country accent, which I don't really get.
Really? Huh. Maybe I lived in Utah.
I think it is a Utah thing where you don't say certain letters and it sounds a little, I don't know, Southern, but like, I don't know. You're just not saying the whole word. So
hey, John, it's good to see you. It's been too long. Not long enough, you son of a bitch.
Like
it's my John Dutton.
There you go.
It's good.
If I say mountain,
milk,
yeah. People from my friends from Virginia will be like, "What did you just say?"
Layton, Utah. Yeah, there's a little bit of a Utah accent. When I first moved out here, everybody said the same thing. You talk too fast.
But yeah, there's an East accent of many dialects, and all of them include the fact that you're on Ritalin or something.
And I'm not. Let's be clear. And by the way, I'm not anti-Ritalin.
If you need it,
I'm not. Yeah. I'm not on it. I feel like Ritalin is a thing of the past, and now it's like Adderall, which basically is legalized meth, just for anyone who's out there just smashing addies left and right, just so you know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. You like money, Porter? Just play along. Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Love it.
You have to delve into some philosophical
big
explanation
money guy.
about money. Yes, Porter likes money.
I love currency of all forms, especially pennies.
I know you do. I think those are obsolete at this point, right?
I know. I'm actually kind of sad about it.
So, just real quick, I have a change drawer at my house. Mm-hmm. Do you think pennies at some point are like going to make a comeback and be super valuable? Should I hang on to pennies that I have?
Don't make fun of me for this.
Oh wait, is this something you're already doing?
Yeah, I'll buy your pennies if you want.
You're collecting pennies?
Here's the deal.
Do you have some inside information on the future of pennies?
No, I'm just I do have I know about metals and have some. I own some metals.
Okay. All right.
Pennies, right? Mm-hmm. The ones before 1982, they actually are made out of copper.
Okay.
More copper than 1 cent worth.
Okay.
After 1982, most of them are like a zinc, aluminum, like a mixture of it's not really worth any money metal-wise. So if you can get enough pennies from before 1982 and you're brave enough to, I don't know, misplace some pennies, wink, wink, you have more copper than you have money.
You have a tremendous amount of knowledge about the most obscure things. It just always catches me off guard. Birds, pennies, metals.
It's more just rocks and outside stuff and animals.
Well, anyway, the reason I asked Porter if he liked money, and at some point he's just going to play along with a bit and say yes.
I love pennies.
There you go. Well, okay, moving on. Who loves money? In the car, raise your hand. You're lying if you're not raising your hand. Well, our friends at America First Credit Union have an excellent offer for you going on right now. So, if you're with one of the big national banks, I hate to break it to you, you're not doing enough with your money. You're actually helping them make money. They don't give a rip about helping your money make money and helping your money work for you. I mean, that's what the point of making money is. You want your money to make money, compound interest over time. And with the big brands or the big banks, they're just in business to profit off your back. When it comes to a credit union, they're actually not in it for the profit. They're in it to help the consumer. So let's help your money do more. Leave one of the big banks. You don't get great customer service anyway. You're just one of millions of members. And make the switch over to America First Credit Union, where your money will start to do more for you, okay? They've got 87 branches in Utah. And what I've been struck by is just how nice they are and how helpful they are. Like, you walk into a branch and they actually want to help solve issues with your bank account, your checking or your savings account. Got money market options that can teach you how to invest as well. You can get people on the phone. I mean, the reason I left a big national branch is that I had an issue that they completely ignored. It was entirely their fault. Ended up costing me like $600. Couldn't get any help. I just left. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So America First Credit Union, where your money can work for you. And then also they have a great offer where they're giving you $100 when you open a checkings and a savings account. They're just going to give you $100, no strings attached. Holiday season, maybe help out a little Christmas shopping. They're offering $50 deposit for a bank account if you open it for your teenager. It's never too early. I'm so grateful I did this with my son. When he was 13, 14 years old, we opened up an account. I taught him how to deposit, withdraw, and taught him how money works. And he's been able to save and, build himself a nice little start to life. So a $50 offer if you open up an account for your kid. So America First Credit Union, bottom line, go into one of their 87 branches today. Go to americafirst.com/deals for more information. And they'll take great care of you. Appreciate having them on the show as a client. We'll catch a break. 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Let you hear from Coach Witt coming up. We have Stevenson Sylvester on the show. Amy Donaldson in studio for an entire hour. Don't forget, Monday Night Football comes your way between the Niners and the Panthers at about 6 o'clock when we say goodnight. So keep it here on ESPN 700. 2 straight days at work where I forgot my Uncrustable. So two straight days where I'm grumpy because I don't have my fun treat for the afternoon.
Yeah, that's rough. No adult should have to go an afternoon without an Uncrustable. No adult.
No, I mean, it's my fun little treat. And now I'm grumpy and I'm ornery and I still have 3 hours of radio to do.
Sports radio and kindergarten.
Real quick.
Is where these things happen.
Yeah. And look, I'm not above admitting that I have some certain habits and tendencies that paid me as an 8-year-old. I also very much enjoy a Snickers ice cream bar from time to time.
I throw a tantrum when my football team doesn't win. I love me some candy, some Gushers that I got from the...
Ooh. Oh, love Gushers.
The kiosk recently.
Such a good call. Real quick before we get to it, have you seen the new Olympic logo?
I just saw that.
It's awful.
It is weird. I do like the Utah thing. Not that I think Salt Lake City should be like excluded as a branding thing. I do like that just because you were around for the Olympics last time. It was a lot of other cities and places, included in that.
That's fair.
So I do like the Utah thing, but the actual logo is interesting.
It looks like somebody just went on like a Microsoft Word document and found a cool font and was like, let's just do this.
Utah 2034, yeah.
I'm very disappointed. Anyway.
The 2002 logo was awesome, too.
Yes, I agree.
Biased there, but,
I still have a bag full of unopened gear from the Olympic Games in 2002. Do you think there's any value? Is there more value in old Olympic gear from 2002 or pennies from 1982?
Olympic gear.
Okay.
The pennies thing, you got to amass a lot of pennies for any value there.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. We're misbehaving. Let's get back on clock. We're going to have Stevenson Sylvester stop by. But as we do every Monday during the college football season, we like to hear from the head coach of the Utes. Here he is, Coach Witt.
Just got to keep hanging in there and making plays, and our guys did just that, and were able to come out with a win. A lot of offense, obviously, both sides. Not a lot of defense on either side, but it was good to get the win. And really, for our seniors, it was awesome to see them be able to play their last game in Rice Eccles and go out with a win. And that was, probably the biggest positive of the night the afternoon was seeing that happen. A lot of really good individual performances on offense. Devin Dampier was outstanding. Did miss a few throws early, but settled in and really played an excellent game, over 300 yards, well over 300 yards of total offense. Wayshawn Parker hit 100 yards again. Bird Ficklin added his usual positive things to the game, a couple touchdowns and some really good runs. Offensive line, again, did a nice job, rushed for almost 300 yards. So a lot of good things on offense. Obviously not our best game on defense. Got really... there's no real easy explanation to it. I mean, we just did not play the run game in any way, shape, or form with any consistency, with any degree of, it just wasn't good. And, we were doing everything we could do wrong, we did. We didn't fit the run gaps like we're supposed to. We didn't tackle like we usually do. We weren't as physical as we usually are in the front seven. So a lot of things that were just, just happened. And I guess that happens on rare occasions. But I got no doubt that those guys will bounce back this week. And they're a prideful group and have a lot of competitiveness in them. And so we'll hopefully get that thing turned back around and where it should be for this week. Kansas, got a road trip to Kansas to finish off the regular season. A lot like the team we just played, personnel-wise, physical, got some athletic guys, and so there's a lot of carryover from the last few games. There's a lot of carryover in this game from both sides of the football schematically that, things that we've seen. And so we got to be ready. It's a Friday kickoff, so a short week. Got one day less to prepare, as do they, so there's no advantage one way or the other there. But looking for the opportunity to win a 10th game in the regular season, which I can't remember the last time we were able to do that, but it's been a few years, I believe. So, anyway, questions?
Got Justin's question there.
Okay.
Last one of the year.
After this historic win on Saturday, Joe Jackson, or congrats on this historic win on Saturday. Joe Jackson, though, broke multiple records by 293 yards at Rice Eccles Stadium. Do you have a plan that will rectify this issue as we take on the Jayhawks this Friday? We sure hope so. And yeah, he did a lot of damage, and it was really on one play, A-gap power. Just a basic, one of the most basic plays in football. There was nothing elaborate about the schemes, nothing that took us by surprise. Again, we just didn't fit the run game up at all, and it was an historically bad day defending the run. So yeah, we certainly got to have a better answer than we had last week. And then after the game, you kind of showed some rare emotion there. What was it about is it the moment, the way that game transpired, or what kind of brought that up? Not really. It's just the seniors, and you want them so badly to go out on a positive note and have a, they've been so instrumental to our success for a lot of years, that group, and have provided such great leadership this year, and been so just have done such a great job of keeping things on track, and just wanted them to be able to go out the right way, and against all odds they did. And it looked like for a minute it wasn't going to happen, and so they were able to do that, and that got the best of me. I don't usually get too emotional, and that did get the best of me. You're right.
Obviously, you have a decision to make about your future.
Mm-hmm.
What are the main factors that go into that decision? Is that something you start thinking about now, or is that something?
No, that's an after the season thing. After the when it's all said and done, and whatever happens to us in the postseason, whichever situation we find ourselves in, as soon as everything's culminated, and you have a few days or maybe even a week or two to sit back and evaluate and see where you're at, and go from there. So I guess that's the best answer I can give you right now.
Kyle, you guys left the Kansas State game with a banged up John Henry Daly, Ryan Davis, and I think even Spencer Fano. Are any of those season-ending or any of those long-term? Just walk me through that.
John Henry is long-term. Unfortunately, it's a season-ending injury, and felt bad for him. He was having a monster game. I think he was only 15 snaps in, and he had 4 or 5 impact plays, and so just tough to see that happened to John Henry. That's why I say it all the time. It's the worst part of college football is the injuries, and seeing these guys, go down. And so he unfortunately is long term. The other guys wait and see. We'll have the injury report. I don't know since it's a short week if it comes out on Tuesday or Wednesday. Usually it's Wednesday, but I don't know if it'll be Tuesday. Okay, so you'll find out tomorrow, and we'll find out more as the days go by here.
Coach, to follow up on that, you had players step up in their place, John Henry Daly and Ryan Davis, speaking of Cash and Lentz, and then on offense with Larry and Creed. Mm-hmm. What can you say of those guys' performance stepping up? Did a nice job, and all of them. You mentioned the guys that really picked up the slack. Creed has really come into his own these last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, and even though he hasn't played a ton, just his practice, the way he's performing in practice, the things that were lacking in spring and earlier in the season have he's made those weaknesses become strengths, and so it was very positive to see him be able to come in and really give us a little bit of a spark. Cash Dillon is a guy that we think has a tremendous upside. He's played quite a few snaps already this year, but when we lost John Henry, it was up to him and Lance to come in and do some good things, and they both did, and so that's fortunate for us that we had depth at those positions.
Kyle, at this point last year, you guys were eliminated from bowl contention.
I was miserable at this point last year. Yeah, we all were.
So can you
maybe some were happy. I don't know. Maybe some.
Can you speak to the turnaround, because now you guys are pushing for your first 10-win regular season since 2019. 2019. Okay. Can you just talk about the turnaround that one calendar year has provided to this team?
Yeah. Well, again, credit the seniors for not having a hangover after the season. I guess you could say not only do you have hangovers after certain after games, you can have a little bit of a hangover after a season, and they would have none of that. We started off the off season on a very positive note way back in January, and again due to their great leadership, and they're instrumental in getting things turned around. I mean that's the real bottom line to what the success this season really is hinged upon, is the ownership that the players have taken in the program. Hey, Wes. I thought you were retired. Close?
When are we golfing?
Soon.
Let's go.
Soon.
The last couple of years, your defense is the one that's kept you guys in games. And
Right.
It's a struggle. And the last couple of weeks, it's been the other way around. It's got to feel bizarre to you.
It's a departure, and certainly we had our struggles last year on defense, and again, those, not to belabor the point, we going on your fifth quarterback in the last game didn't help our cause at all, but we still played really good defense this year. I think we're probably third in the league in most categories: scoring defense, total defense, all the major categories, and so we're still playing good defense, but we're playing really good offense this year. Our offense is first, second, or third in most every category as well, and that's what has lent itself to a good season. And you're right, typically it's when we get in those tough games in the past, it was low-scoring defensive battles, but the offense has done a really good job this year putting points on the board. In fact, that was probably the biggest difference in the game Saturday, is we were 6 for 6 in the red zone, 6 touchdowns and 6 trips, and that's outstanding. We got one of the top, I got to believe we're in the top 5 or 6 in the nation in red zone touchdown percentage offensively. I don't have that stat at the tip of my fingers, but that was probably the biggest difference in the game.
You had 4 guys take direct snaps, whether it was Dampierre, Ficklin, Johnson, Parker. What does that do to a defense when they kind of don't know who to prepare for, who's going to have the ball for?
Exactly, and that's part of Jason's creativity and the way he game plans, and it's all designed to create matchup problems and show things that we haven't shown before, which are difficult for the defense but fit into what we're doing offensively, so there's not a huge learning curve for our guys. It's just a matter of using all your weapons to the utmost, and he has a real gift for that, Jason does, as far as putting kids or players in position to succeed and putting the defense in conflict.
Coach, you lead the country in red zone touchdown.
We do.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. What is it? It's got to be 80% or better.
82%.
82%, which
above Georgia.
That's huge. That is huge.
Can you talk about Devin Dampierre and what he showed in that fourth quarter after battling through kind of a rough game to make the plays that he did?
That's who he is. You talk about a fierce competitor and a guy that never, ever even thinks about getting down on himself or anybody else. He's always positive, and it was manifest in that fourth quarter in particular. And what a great leader he is. I can't say enough good things about him and what he's meant to the program in the short time he's been here.
Over your tenure, you've always wanted to establish the run, but this year you have a chance to potentially break a school record in total rushing yards in the regular season. What does that mean just for you personally and also just for this team to be able to have that?
Well, for me personally, I love the physicality of the game, and there's nothing more that demonstrates physicality than running the football and defending the run. And if we're, what is the record? How close are we?
About 180, I believe.
Okay, well, I would say first of all, or second of all, that the offensive line is really the driving impetus behind that. I mean, we got a really good athletic quarterback that runs the ball well. We've got, Wayshawn Parker's coming to his own, but without an offensive line that can do the things that our guys have done all year, that stuff doesn't happen. And so that's a real credit to them and Jim Harding and the job he's done with those guys.
How would you evaluate Jason Beck this season? How has he helped?
A+. We're only 11 games in, so we got 1 to go. I say only. We got 1 to go, but Jason has really been a huge positive force, and then the influx of the transfer portal guys have helped boost us as well. And then, but again, it all starts with a solid offensive line, but Jason's done a phenomenal job this year. Statistically, that is borne out in the numbers as well.
You've always struck me as a guy who doesn't worry about the things that you can't control.
That's a good analysis. Yeah, I'll take that.
But now you're in the changing landscape of college football. You're spending a lot of time and money investing in players that at the end of the year could be gone. How frustrating as a head coach has that become for you?
Well, it's a radical departure from how it used to be, and used to know who 90+% of your roster is going to be from year to year as the guys go in and out. But now it's there's so much change, and you better be on top of your game. You better have a good list of portal guys already put together, before the season ends to see, hey, if this guy hits the portal, we're definitely going to be interested in keep an eye out for that. And so I can't really say that you just have to embrace the change because you can't do anything about it. As you said, don't worry about what you can't control. So the portal is here. It's here to stay, in my opinion. And so you better embrace it and navigate it and use it to your advantage. And I think we've done a pretty good job. I really feel like our net portal results are way in the positive column than the negative column as far as who we lost and who we've gained.
Take two more. Kyle, piggybacking off of that portal window in January and last year, just with so many decisions to be made, it's kind of like you can't get a breath. But now there's sort of that dead period. Does it help when you're making decisions in terms of maybe you say retirement or player retainment and all of that stuff? How does that change your guys' process?
Yeah, we think it's going to help. Now, it's the first time through it with this format, so something's going to rear its ugly head, we're sure. But it seems to make more sense now than it ever has since the advent of the portal. And so as we navigate it and go through it, I'll have better feedback for you, a couple months than I do right now. But yeah, you gotta a chance now to take, as you said, a breather and time to evaluate, visit with your players, your roster, and try to retain your roster and find out what guys' plans are. And so I think it appears to be a real solid move on the rules committee part to structure it that way.
Last one from Samantha.
Blake has had an insane season. He's been top of PFF's coverage grades for you guys this season. Can you just speak about the importance of him in the secondary this year?
Yeah, case in point, I talk about the guys we've gained in the portal. He's one of them, Blake Cotton, and has been instrumental to our success on defense. His, as you mentioned, his statistics and the PFF stuff is all very good on him, and that's just another example of a guy coming in and contributing right away, and he's just been a huge positive. I hope he gets some postseason accolades because he sure deserves it, in my opinion.
All right, there you go, Coach Witt addressing the media earlier today. Rough news with John Henry Daly. I referenced earlier that he did have to leave the game. Had not heard the news until Witt just broke it. I guess if there's any positive, it's our guy Nate Orchard is still the mayor of Sac Lake City. But John that kid has had a hell of a year. A
really, really good year. It's going to be a bummer not to see him try to finish that off on a strong note. And then Spencer Fano, another one that went down during the game. Didn't mention those guys there, so we'll wait to see the injury report. But yeah, bummer for John Henry Daly.
Yeah,
fantastic year.
I mean, look, and I say this with all due respect, because that's what you say when you're about to say something that people might not like. I just wonder if you're Spencer, if you're just like, all right, I might be a top 10 pick. Like, I've loved it here, thank you, but maybe,
if it's anything with any sort of like re-injury possibility, I would not expect to see him back. It did look like he was pretty light on his feet, getting helped off the field. So that would be my assumption, is that we probably don't see him for the remainder of the year.
Yeah.
That being said, if there's some things that go Utah's way last week of the season, he'd probably do everything he could to be on the field if certain things would be on the horizon.
Yeah, for sure. So as Witt referenced, it's the worst part of it, man. Seeing these young kids get hurt, it's too bad. All right, we're going to bring in, are you listening, Muss members? Calling all Muss members. Porter, can you send out a text to everyone in the Muss, please?
I don't know if I can, but I'll send out a tweet.
Okay, send out a tweet to the Muss specifically. There's some rumors that the kids in the Muss are wondering why Sly's on the field. He works for us on the broadcast side. Like, who is that guy? Oh, I don't know. Just one of the best linebackers that's ever played for the U.
He is standing out in his new gear.
Well, it's hard to miss him. He's also still built like he could play.
Yeah. Could have used him.
For sure. Yeah, could have. We'll bring in Sly coming up on the other side. Our friend Amy Donaldson from KSL joins us. Don't forget, Monday Night Football between the Niners and the Panthers can be heard right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. All right, Porter, you're going to start the interview off. Okay, we got Sly on the line, and I was unaware of this dynamic that's occurring with the Musts at Rice-Eccles Stadium until I saw the tweet you sent out about our next guest. So I'm unclear about the dynamic. Please explain it. Then we're going to bring Sly in.
Yeah, just to be clear, I'm hoping and assuming it's maybe just a very small minority of uninformed Musts, but I will give them at least one break here because it has been 17 years since one Stevenson Sylvester was on the football field with the Utes at the Sugar Bowl. Some of those kids were not born, so apparently a few of them were. They were asking, who's that guy out in that sweet sweatsuit? Just the best linebacker to ever do it here.
Sly, we can't. This will not stand. I will not stand for this injustice. I am standing up for you that these kids in the Musts need to go to YouTube and search Stevenson Sylvester.
Old head.
Man, is that a real thing?
Yeah, apparently, because you work for us. You're on the broadcast team. So when you're down on the sideline doing the interviews, apparently these young kids are like, who's that dude down there on the field? And I will not let that stand, Sly. I am calling the Musts out. They need to get familiar.
Normally, it's he who should remain nameless. But, yeah, man, I don't know. It just lets me know that I am getting old. There's evolution and phasing out, and it has been a minute since I've blessed the field. Yeah, man, inform them. Let them know. Let them know what's up because I'm going to be around for a while.
Now, if you're old, I am close to the grave, so I will have none of that, Sly. But, look, man, I was pumped to see you on the rundown today. I saw the breakdown you did with our friends at KSL over the weekend. So we'll get to the good as far as Utah coming back and getting that win. But after the game, when you look at the up-to-date rankings in the Big 12, Utah is the 9th-ranked defense stopping the run this year, which just feels so weird to me. So, of course, Saturday night was next level, but what was the deal? How did K-State have that much success on the ground?
It's actually crazy. You go back and watch the film, and it's kind of unexplainable. I think Coach Witt hit it in the head in his press conference today. It's just like it's basic things. It wasn't like a crazy amount of pullers, something that we haven't seen before. We were kind of taken back from what it was. It was basic power roll that I dealt with back in the day, a long time ago when we used to wear leather helmets. Then it's we just weren't handling it well. And basically, it was about communication, right? And one person thought that other people were doing this thing, and other people thought that person was doing that thing. And everybody knows if you want to play great defense, and this is why Utah has been such good at defenses, everybody's on the same page. They over-communicate. And I just don't think that we were communicating well. That goes to a point of how I was taught from Gary Anderson, Kalani, and Coach Witt is never sacrifice your responsibilities to bluff, right? By trying to disguise. I'm not saying that this is what Utah was doing, but in essence, it's the same thing. Is like if you're trying to disguise and not let the offense know what you're doing, you're in the wrong because at the end of the day, the way this defense is led up or designed is that even if the offense knows you're in man-to-man, you're in press man, you're in cover two, you're in basic gap defense, you're not blitzing, you're not doing whatever, you should still win if you do your job right. And that's all 11 guys doing their job right. And it just wasn't. It was one guy on one play, it's another guy on another play, and it just seemed to never correct itself, which never happens. Normally it's like, hey, you're messing up, fix it, and we're good to go. And like you have one or two gaps in the game. There was probably 15-plus chunk plays of mental errors. And this day and age, if you want to be successful, you want to win, you can't have as many mental errors as Utah defense has. But fortunately enough, we got a powerful offense, and we came through with that win.
So, I mean, how much of it is, because I heard you talking about this over the weekend, how much of it is technique, how much of it is missed tackling, how much of it is lack of communication, and then how much of it, Sly, we were talking earlier to Scott about this, Scott Mitchell, the interesting thing about what NIL has done, and this is not just a Utah thing, Lane Kiffin is the guy who gave the interview to ESPN a couple months ago, and he was discussing this dynamic in the SEC where once upon a time, if you're Nick Saban in Alabama and a defensive end sprains an ankle, you can just say, well, go dust off the 5-star kid I have over there and bring him in. That's not the deal anymore because if you're a 5-star waiting behind a 5-star, another coach is going to call you and say, look, you don't have to sit. Come play for me. I'm going to pay you $2 million. So is there also maybe a lack of depth with Utah that we have, we have seen this year, which isn't something we've seen over the past few years?
Which it's kind of funny you say that, because the people that are in this defense right now have been here for a couple years. There's not many new guys on defense, right? The only new guys on defense is the outside guys, the corners, right? And so the interior of the defense was the issue this past week. And so, yeah, I get it. There is that dynamic, and there is the other dynamic, too, of understanding different culture habits. The way people run defenses is different. I didn't realize this until I got to the NFL, and I realized that, like, Jim Schwartz, he was the D coordinator at a few different places, from the Eagles to the Lions. But I did a workout with them, and I'm trying to question about, like, the playbook and how everything's designed and worked out, and trying to understand that fully, and the way that they run cover 4, or the way that they run cover 6, or the way that they have their DNs run is very different than other people. Now, even that goes for tackling, too. So a lot of people, like when I went to Buffalo, they're just like, hey, safeties, don't even really wrap up. Just shoot at their legs, man. You just throw it all in there and make that happen. And so there's different mentalities that's taught other places. So when you have this transfer portal, you have these new guys in. These guys were taught a certain way from different people. Well, that may not be the correct way, right? And so you got to reteach, relearn, and a lot of things that you're not anticipating wasting so much time on, you end up wasting a lot of time on, and it's in the basics. And so that's when playbooks get more simplified. That's when guys are getting beat the way we saw last night. So I can't totally put it on the transfer portal, because as much as we want the coach or the coaches to take the blame in this, and that's Coach Whittingham. He's like, I didn't coach these guys up well enough. They obviously weren't prepared. And so that's me. That there's some ownership that needs to be had on the players too. Like, there's only so much a coach can do. A coach ain't out there making the plays. They had their days playing. Coach Witt has his days playing. Scally has had his days playing. Sharif Shaw, Luther Ellis. All these guys have played in the past, man. So they can't go out there and do it for you on Saturday. There needs to be some ownership, and I hate to say it, sometimes you just have some of them days, but sometimes you can't have days as bad as we had on Saturday. So back-to-back weeks, 1,000 total yards between both teams just can't happen. That's insane.
All right, one question about Witt, and then we'll move over to the good portion of what we saw on Saturday afternoon, which is this football team just really being able to tote the rock, man. They're running it at such a high level. A lot of people, Sly, were surmising that since Coach Witt was emotional after the game, and what's interesting is the sentence that actually got him is when he said the final time at Rice Eccles. That's the sentence that got him, right? So he kind of coughed it up and said, look, I get emotional when I'm talking about my seniors, and maybe that it is just that, but a lot of people believe that soundbite indicated that that was also his final time at chance at Rice Eccles Stadium. Did you interpret that the same way?
I don't know. From the past couple of years, you could probably say that you've gotten something. The way that I felt after UCF last year, I'm just like, oh, this is definitely going to be it. And next thing you know, he's like, I'm back at it. So I can't really say, and that's why, leaving him to keep it open, it does allow you to take it day by day, because the competitive edge kind of never leaves you, and you have no idea exactly what it is. So, he normally goes on his vacation in January after everything's all said and done, and he'll get to understand it. But I don't think Coach Witt is one to kind of drag it on. And so if that was his final time, I'm happy that it ended with a W, because, when we look back on this game, yeah, they gave up a ton of yards, but what everybody's going to remember is how we finished, right? And that's all the players are going to remember. We finished this game. Our first time playing the Kansas State Wildcats in football, we had an epic finish, and what that crowd was like and what that was, and Coach Witt, the emotion of coaching and making that happen. So we don't really know if it's the last one. I wish I could take that sound bite and saying, yeah, that is, but I truly don't know, and I just, appreciate how much he's invested into the University of Utah and this football program and the great years that he's brought to us. So that's all I'm going to relish. And, I just hope that, the rest of this team feels that way and sends him out the way we need to by continuing to win.
I know this might sound like a weird question, but stick with me for a moment, because if I remember correctly, you told an epic story last week about dunking on Greg Oden, and we'll just leave that there for listeners that want to go listen to that. Go ahead and do that. But I believe you had shared that you were recruited because of what an athlete you were. And when it comes to what Kyle Whittingham means to Stevenson Sylvester, how he impacted your life, what would you say to that?
Oh man, do we have enough time?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Man, that's a great question, man. Coach Witt, one, he's a special dude, and for me, I kind of look at everything well-rounded and what somebody is supposed to mean to you and what position they take. I take these youth football coaches and what impact they're supposed to have on youth football kids' lives and these middle school coaches and high school coaches. A lot of times, these coaches replace father figures in kids' lives, and I've had multiple, right, from Coach Anderson to Kalani to Coach Witt, and the way that they have impacted my life and the different coaches within my life. But it's funny, I was just talking to Coach Witt after the game, and he just was like, Sly, I remember a skinny kid coming to your high school, and he remembered his first trip to my high school, exactly what he was wearing, everything, and even today, and that was 25 years ago, man. So this guy he's tremendous at what he does and how he impacts players, and the biggest thing of how he supports his guys. And when you guys take that press conference and he talks about the seniors, it's because he's invested in these players. He's invested in the maturation and them becoming good and great men, right? And what they do after football. And after football for me is Coach Whittingham supporting me in all of my philanthropic efforts, from all my community service stuff. He basically said, Sly, whatever you're doing, I'm behind you. And that's it. And so if I ever asked for a favor or ever needed anything, I can guarantee Coach Witt is there. And for an individual to understand that coming from such a powerful figure as Coach Whittingham is, and just knowing how busy he is and what he's willing to do for you individually, you tip your cap, man. There's nothing you can say more than that, and that's what you want out of relationships, out of knowing people. And what I've been able to experience with Coach Witt over the years of coaching and seeing how he's impacted other people and being a leader of men, and how he's told guys or instructed or coached guys, mentored guys on how to act, talk, walk outside of football, from how serious you need to be taking your schoolwork, from how serious you need to be taking off-season training. One of the biggest things that stands out to me as a player is in 2007, right? Like I came in here as a freshman in 2006, and I ended up starting the second game of the year. And I ended up starting a few games after that, playing alongside Weddle. We do great. We beat TCU, which was a huge game. And then I get injured, right, and sick. And then I lose my starting job, and I don't get it back until my sophomore year. And so then we go on this weird win streak on 2007. But after the bowl game in 2007, right after the game, first thing he says after he shakes the coach's hand is he comes up to me and said, "This is your team. We'll go as far as you go." And for a guy to come up to me and empower me as a sophomore to say, take this team on, and I took that, and just what happened transcended the next couple of years after. I would say that by him empowering me made me take that step of ownership in this football team, and just simple things like that can mean so much to a person, and how many guys that Coach Whittingham has affected the way he has. As I said, I could be here and talking all day and give you guys examples, but he's a tremendous human being on what he's been able to do over his 40-plus years of coaching. And just think about that, 40-plus years of coaching. You got 100-plus guys on a football team, and how many of those guys has he impacted? And so he's just done a tremendous job and a remarkable career. And as I said, man, this has to be the year of Witt. And I hope they put a statue of him right in front of that Olympic cauldron right outside Rice-Eccles Stadium. I'm
thinking Kyle Whittingham Field at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Does that have a nice ring to it? Kyle Whittingham Field.
We're gonna have to work on that one.
We'll have to workshop that one. Okay, we'll workshop that one. Hey, is it safe to say, Sly, I've known you for a long time. I know you're a confident kid, and you were an insanely good football player. But is it fair to say that Kyle maybe saw some things in you that as a young person you didn't see in yourself at the time?
Oh, yeah, and that's why these mentors, these coaches, I talk about these youth coaches, these high school coaches, the impact that they have from the things that you say to a person, right? I've seen guys who didn't look like they had any promise on the football field because they didn't put energy, but a coach simply invested in that player and transcended that guy's entire life. It went from bleak to I don't see anything to I see everything just by a single guy investing in somebody and doing that, man. And so, yeah, I would definitely say Coach Witt is somebody that's definitely done that for me. And that has to be something where I'd want to get everybody to kind of, write up something where to say what he's done for them.
All right, so we discussed the issues defensively, the missed tackles and such. And, it's funny, Sly, because the program for basically 20 years has always been like, okay, we're an offense away from contending for conference championships, whether it's, Pac-12, Mountain West, or Big 12 now. And now it's like, okay, we are seeing the offense at times bail the defense out, and that's certainly what happened on Saturday afternoon. 51 points, the fourth time they go above 50 all year. They're the best rushing attack in the Big 12, and I still think they're top three nationally. Dissect this for us. Why have they been able to be so effective, and specifically what did you see on Saturday afternoon?
Well, I got to say it's Jason Beck, right? One, it's what I've felt, for the years of taking advantage of personnel, right, and understanding what you have at your disposal, and just the things that he's been able to dial up from finding out new people, right? Like Daniel Bray wasn't a part of the offensive attack at the start of the season, but he made an impact play, and you're like, hey, we got a guy, and that increased a wrinkle into your offense. Now he's a frequent part of your offense, and then looking at Creed Whittemore and his development, and when guys are ready, actually utilizing them, right? From J.J. Buchanan, right? All these young guys. You see how many young guys we're announcing each and every week that are true freshmen? J.J. Buchanan, Daniel Bray, Bert Finkelin, right? These are young guys in the program. Wayshawn Parker's only a sophomore. These are young guys in the program, so this is going to be great things going ahead, man. And it started out, and it's one thing that rarely happens. It sucks that it rarely happens, but when you got somebody that's highly touted, right, and I'm talking about this offensive line group, right, it came into the season with all of these accolades, all of these things that everybody was talking to them about, and they actually made it happen throughout the year. That, for me, that rarely happens. And so much so that they exceeded being top rushing team in the nation for 10 out of the 11 weeks is absolutely outstanding. So, but you can see how much time Devin Dampier has to throw the ball even. So it's not just running the ball. This offensive line is outstanding. And what I've known about football ever since, I started playing is that the football starts up front, whether it's the defensive line, offensive line, and then it trickles back into your skill position players. And if you have that offensive line, you can have a lot of success. And that's what it is. Those guys dominate the line of scrimmage. They put fear into anybody that they're going against, and that's what you want to do. You want to do that without even playing the game, and I feel like our offensive line does that. And they just do a terrific job, man. And I just love watching this offense go out there and execute to the best of their abilities. But to surmise that, it's Jason Beck being able to understand the personnel and go out there and execute that to the best of its abilities, whether that's a good passing game or whether that's a good running game. But if you're able to dominate people in the running game, you don't even need to pass. And if the defense knows that you're a great running team and they still can't stop it, even more so. So I'd have to tip the cap to Jason Beck for the accelerated success of this offense.
So Utah falls to 14 in the AP. Miami jumps the Utes after they smoked Va Tech. The college football playoff rankings will be released tomorrow. My guess is they're going to more or less accurately reflect what the AP has to say. I think right. Utah probably stays about 14. But I wanted to ask you this because we were talking to Scott a little bit earlier. He said I could make the case to the CFP that Utah belongs. Do you feel like, Sly, you could make the case to the CFP that Utah should be in the playoff this year?
I mean, I do. ACC is weak, and so Miami is just all talk and fluff. Honestly, if there's like a coin flip game where we could be like, there's a sudden death game, almost like a kind of wild card before you. I think baseball does this, right? A wild card game before you get into the playoffs to see who can get that final spot. It's, I would definitely be able to make a case that Utah should be in there, and there's a lot, man, and so anybody that's watched Utah can understand that. And when you see a healthy Utah football team, you see dynamic people all over the place, and that's offensively and defensively, right? I know we've had a couple bad defensive performances, but if you really want to understand that, and that's where my argument will go to, is those things are fixable, and those things you can't see week to week. And so hopefully that they'll take my case and try to present it the best I can with my best lawyer voice. And but yes, I definitely think that Utah deserves to be in there. But at the end of the day, you have to win your football games. And we were primed, ready, set up. We were ranked and everything. And we fell against Texas Tech and we fell against BYU.
Last thing, I'll set you loose on this. Ultimately, I don't think, you make some good points, and the problem is, letting a 500 football team hang almost 500 yards and rushing in your stadium is probably something that the committee is going to bring up as a dynamic against Utah. But the Utes have one more opportunity, Sly, to show the committee that they're a very good team. Now, when you look at where Kansas is ranked on both offense and defense, they're the definition of mediocre. They're not last in anything, but they're not close to first in anything. The Daniels kid can throw it a little bit. Utah's a 12.5-point favorite. It is a Friday game. Do you think this road trip could get tricky, or do you feel like we're going to handle our business?
I think we're going to handle our business. I think the players are not happy with how they performed, but, is totally excited about getting a win, right? You kind of dream about stuff like that where you're in just this epic battle, and then all of a sudden you pull out just unthought of and win that nobody thought you could do. Like I really want to look at the statistics and say, what was the chances of winning with 7 minutes left in the game and we're down by 12, right? Like, what was that? It converted to making things happen. So it's just one of those epic things, and if you're a part of that, that's something you could take with you for the rest of your life, but you don't ever want to give yourself or put yourself in that position again. And so the biggest thing about athletes is being competitive, and competitors know that I got to get better every day, right? And if I was as bad as I was last week, I'm going to take it upon myself to be better. So I'm hoping that this football team puts out an amazing performance on Saturday to where they make up for this past week to where ultimately Kansas doesn't get any yards. So I think they're going to take out their frustrations on how bad they performed and what everybody's saying about them on Kansas, and you're going to see a great football game from Utah.
Sly, you're the man. Appreciate the time today. If I don't get to talk to you, have an excellent Thanksgiving and travel safe, okay?
I will. You too. Thanks, guys.
The legend is the must listening. The legend, Stevenson Sylvester, one of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah. Porter, do me a favor. As soon as that is posted online, please send it out on social media and tag the Muss and say, in order for people to stay members of the Muss for next year,
it should be,
they have to listen to that interview and answer 3 questions about Sly before they actually get their card.
It should be required.
Do they get a Muss card?
I think they still do, but I'm not entirely sure.
Okay,
I did.
Fair enough.
I did give a little refresher for the folks over there, just to be clear.
Okay, good.
But I'm with you.
Yeah, they need to be tagged. If I'm understanding the scenarios correctly, the only way Utah can make it into the Big 12 championship game is for TCU to lose, is for Texas Tech to lose. I don't think there's any other scenario at this point. Texas Tech is playing West Virginia, who's very bad at football. At least it is at their place. So I believe that's the only scenario. Utah has to, of course, win. I think they need ASU to win, BYU to win, and Texas Tech to lose.
Correct.
Okay.
So, like you said, there is a chance, and it's actually not like 7 different game results like we had to have a couple of years ago. This time it's only a few of them. That being said, as you mentioned, Texas Tech is very good. West Virginia is very bad. You will need some sort of very weird day on the football field for Utah to play in the Big 12 title game just because of that one.
Texas Tech is a 24.5-point favorite, even though they're on the road. So you're going to need a little miracle. I don't think the at-large pathway is still there, which is unfortunate. It's a team that's playing really good football. We'll catch a break. We're going to bring in Amy Donaldson. We'll get back to some college football stuff in the 5 o'clock hour. And we will say goodnight at 6 to bring you Monday Night Football between the Panthers and the 49ers. 2 hours down, 2 hours to go on a Monday show on ESPN 700. Monday Night Football comes your way in about 2 hours from right now. It is the Niners and the Panthers in Santa Clara. Of course, big weekend behind in college football, big weekend ahead in college football. It's rivalry week for a lot of the national programs, not us here locally. Of course, BYU Utah a number of weeks ago. Joining me live in studio, it has been a long time, Amy Donaldson. Do you even remember the last time you were here?
I think it was still summer.
Months ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been working on a new project, and I went to Australia, see my kid again.
Very nice.
Yeah. So, it's been crazy.
Have you been running outdoors for days at a time recently? Done any of those crazy runs that you do?
No,
Nothing.
I've been indoor. So my kid's into CrossFit.
Oh.
So when I go there, we either do some kind of CrossFit competition. This year, it's really interesting how loyal Australia is to the U.S. They were saved during World War II from Japanese invasion by MacArthur. And so they just have this, like, I think one of the tours we went on, they said there's only one country or two countries who've stood with America in every conflict and every war, Canada and Australia.
Canada might change their mind in a little bit. But anyway.
I think we've lost them, but we have not lost the Australians.
Okay,
and so
good.
they
good,
theleibrate our Veterans Day.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
They actually do the veterans workouts. I don't know if you see that. Like, there's a bunch of, sort of universal workouts that different veterans group put out that basically say, do these things in honor of veterans everywhere.
My brothers do all of those, and they always post about them.
And they always have, like, weird names, like the Burt, or the Cliff, or like, just really no name you would ever want your child to have.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, they had one that was 1,000 step-ups.
It's an aggressive amount of step-ups.
On a 20-inch box. And they're like, but you hike. And I was like, I do not hike.
Yeah.
If I do that, like, that's a day-long thing. I'm not trying to get done in an hour or whatever it was. So my daughter's hardcore. She went on the 20-inch box. I went on the 14-inch box because I was like, I've just been riding a bike and walking my dogs.
That's a different level of exercise.
It is, yeah. And I'm engaged in, like, a pretty labor-intensive project, and so for working on my new podcast, probably be out this spring.
Okay.
It's sports related, high school sports related.
Okay.
And then just working on some breaking stuff, but yeah. So I did that, and it was kind of fun to celebrate Veterans Day in another country and listen to the little speech they gave. It was interesting.
So your podcast is coming up potentially in the spring.
Yep, that's sort of the plan.
Can we get a little teaser from you?
I don't know what some of it, I've been reporting on, and interestingly, there is a college-related NCAA championship happened this weekend. I've been reporting on F1 visa students that are recruited to Utah or U.S. High schools who come on F1 visas, and sort of just what is that process? What does it look like? And that's come under fire both locally and from the Trump administration.
It happens a lot here, yeah?
Yeah,
okay.
So I think... Well,
in Utah, right?
Yeah, so some of the states around Utah restrict how, like, can you play varsity? Can you play in the playoffs? Those kinds of things, right? They restrict, or maybe you have to sit a year when you come. You can't play varsity right away. And then some of the kids who come on an F1 visa, they're not great athletes or anything. They just want to play, right? They come. And the thing that's different about an F1 visa versus the J1 visa is if you come on an F1 visa, you most likely go to a private school because you can stay multiple years. And if you go to a public school, you can only go 1 year.
Okay.
So most of those are like exchange programs that use a J1 visa. And they're not allowed to pick their host families. They don't get to pick their school. They just come basically in this exchange program. Both of them have very extensive rules and background checks and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, the question that has arisen is, like, how does this happen? Should it be happening? And who's checking to make sure that we don't lose track of these kids once they get here?
Is there one area in the world where they're typically coming over to the States, or is it pretty much all over the place?
Well, I think that it depends on where the club coaches go, where the club plays.
So a lot of them recruited to come play sports?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you would say that in high school and in colleges,
okay.
Or they find out. I've seen on Facebook, like, kids from different, like, there was a kid I saw from an African country who was writing a high school coach here in Utah saying, "Can I please come play at your school? I'm this tall. I make this many points a game. Blah blah blah." But so So I've been looking into that for about 3.5 years, and that's what my podcast is about. But then Ed Eyestone, maybe one of the best running coaches in the history of running down at BYU, he sort of drew the ire of other NCAA coaches by bringing this issue up. And I think I had, let me see if I still have the.
So bringing the issue up as problematic?
As problematic.
Okay.
And one of the things he said was, I'll have to look and see what the numbers are, but it was like 121 of the 236 Division I running spots in the Nationals were taken up, were F1 visa holders.
Yeah.
So, which is a massive amount, right? So F1 numbers are, in fact, they don't actually keep track at the high school level. I believe they do at the college level. They don't actually keep track. And so what he was saying was, we're recruiting international runners to come to colleges because we don't have to. If you come here on F1 visa, you cannot work here, and you're not eligible for NIL money.
Oh.
So you can get a really great foreign runner, and you don't have to pay him any money.
Okay.
But if you have a really great American runner, then you got to pay him some money.
I see.
They want NIL money.
Yeah.
So his contention is like, this is the way they're avoiding paying these players.
Okay.
And it's also limiting the amount of collegiate spots available for American runners.
It feels like he might have a point, though, right?
No, 100%.
Okay.
No, this is the issue. The issue is so complicated, and it's very nuanced, and everybody wants to be like one side of it. We're in this moment in time where there has to be a good guy and a bad guy. There has
Gotta
to be
pick a side, yeah.
right or wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't. There is no gray area, right? And this is all gray area. Like, I just think there's a lot of value. I had foreign exchange students live with us for a year. They came on J1 visas, went to the public school, but I encouraged them to play sports. They didn't make a volleyball team. They did run cross country. They did women's wrestling at the school. Had an amazing time. Loved it, right? I believe athletics, and the studies prove this, the dropout rates are lower. They do better in college. They do better in life. They gain confidence. Like, it's just, there's a lot of value to sports. But what Ed Eyestone is pointing out is that when everybody's trying to figure out, like, how do you make a roster and how do you pay for that roster? Because a lot of the NIL money is not going to sports like cross country.
Right.
Right? So nobody wants to pay the big bucks for that. But, these runners, there's big money in running now. So it's an interesting point. Now, what foreign runners or foreign students can do, because there was a student athlete at Michigan State who did this. He actually created a foundation, and his NIL money went to his foundation, and he ended up building a school in his village. I think he helped develop some water purification or some wells that provided water. So, like, him coming to the U.S., and he came as a high school student, went to high school in Utah, and he played at Michigan State, and I think he finished his career at one of the California schools. But it's changed the lives of the people that in the village where he came from.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can see there's like, why would we not want this, right? We want this. But there's also this idea, like, nowhere in the world is there a sports structure that's combined with education like there is in the U.S.
Yeah.
Just doesn't exist. And so everybody's dream is to come here because you can follow your heart athletically and you can get an education. And even if you don't make it in your goal, which is usually the NBA or the MLB, it's to play professional sports. Even if you don't make it, your life is so much better. Every kid who came here that I've interviewed, even if they had terrible experiences, said I would do it again tomorrow.
So
the best thing that happened to me.
So is the podcast kind of following these stories?
It's really unraveling this issue.
Okay.
And that's why it's taken so much time. It's really complicated. And in Utah, they tried to keep F1 players from playing high school sports, or from varsity. And the federal court said that the law was discriminatory.
Okay.
And now that's before a federal appeals court. And if Utah loses, all the states that restrict F1 access around us that are in the 10th Circuit will now have to allow F1 athletes to play.
If Utah loses.
Utah loses.
Okay.
And so far, they've lost every hearing I've covered.
Do you like the fact that there's pushback on it? Do you have a side with this? I know we were just talking about how you have to pick one side or the other.
I mean, I think for me the thing that that I've been pursuing is, if we're going to have these kids, if we're going to allow people to recruit, and we're going to bring, I think if you're going to have anything, there has to be sufficient infrastructure around it that children are not exploited, or that children are not falling through the cracks or neglected. In 2020, the National Federation wrote an article, National Federation of High School Sports wrote an article that said that there wasn't a way to track F1 students once they got here, and they were unsure how many were here and what happened to them once they got here. And I don't know I can't tell you, like, there are specific people whose job it is to approve their visa, to approve their application to certain schools, those kinds of things. But once they get here, there's not, unless they go to a good reputable program and get with good-hearted people, it could be dicey.
Yeah, you said something earlier, like they don't get to pick their host family. That
so the J ones don't.
The J ones don't get to pick their host family. That's a big wild card.
And I would say most of the F1s I've talked to are trusting the coach they're coming to play for, or the school they're coming to attend. They're trusting them to vet and find them good host families.
Okay.
So you can pick, if you have an F1 visa, you can pick your host family. But these kids most of them don't know anybody here. So they're trusting, like, their international program all these schools have international programs. They're trusting, like, whoever's directing that. They're trusting the coach who recruited them. They're trusting somebody. And that should tell you, you're a parent, would you just put your kid on a plane to a foreign country?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Not know where
Absolutely not. No chance.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even let my kids play in the front yard.
Right.
I was with them.
Right. No, I hear you. Like, but so what would be to be a host family? Hopefully you're just doing it out of the goodness of your heart. But is there an angle? Because now I'm thinking, and I'm coming at this with no knowledge. I'm learning about this in real time as you're talking to me. But is there a scenario where bad actors would pretend to be a host family in order to benefit in some way, and then suddenly these kids are placed in a home with just bad people who are trying to access whatever advantage is there? Is there even an advantage? I know nothing about this.
Let me give you a piece of information that might show you. Again, the experiences run the table. Right?
Sure,
so there's
sure.
There's excellent to bad, and some programs pay host families in F1 programs to host children.
Okay.
So there you can see.
I see.
That I did not get paid. I was taking J1 kids. I basically took on, I was like, this was a genius move on my part.
Yeah.
Take on a couple of kids now that I'm an empty nester and pay for 2 high school kids to go to prom and to play sport.
Got to feed them.
Their parents could pay some of the fees that they were asked to pay, but like by and large, the paying to get their kids to this country is about all they can afford.
Yeah.
And some of them are really well off and they can pay for whatever they want and that. But most host families that I know, they just do it because they just want these kids to have a good experience. And also they think it would be a good experience for their family to have a kid who didn't grow up in the system, who has a different life experience. We all know the benefit of travel.
Sure.
Traveling opens your mind and your heart in ways that reading a book, watching movies, none of that will ever do. So there's a lot of pros to having programs like this. There are a lot of places in which it's pretty easy for somebody to slip through the cracks.
Yeah, and again, I just picture scenarios of maybe certain people seeing a monetary benefit to having 3 or 4 of these kids live in their home, and they're making money off the kids and not funneling the money to where they're feeding the kids properly or whatever it is. Have you come across anything along those lines as you've interviewed these kids?
Like I said, come across all of it, and you'll have to listen to my podcast.
Oh, okay. I like it. Do we have a name of the podcast yet?
Not that I can share, but
we can't even share the name.
I know,
Amy.
Not allowed. If I could do it, I would.
Okay.
As soon as I'm able, I will. But
okay.
I have written about this subject, and mostly I've written about some of the issues people have had, and the host parents are the ones who've really brought this to my attention. And these are host parents who adore the kids that they were assigned to take care of. But they, even as they talk, I just interviewed a mom who sent her kid. She's from Chile. She sent her kid here to the U.S. And even as she's telling the story, and nothing bad happened to him. ended up in a good family, had a good experience. As she's telling the story of how this happened, you can see how there are cliffs everywhere. There's pitfalls everywhere, and he escaped unscathed, but maybe another kid doesn't. And so I think that's really the reason for me doing this project, is that I think nobody wants to take ownership of it.
Yeah.
And I understand why.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Ed Isom took a ton of heat just for saying, hey, I'm not sure this is the best thing for collegiate running. Like, for our sport, do we want coaches to build their teams the cheapest way possible, or do we want this to be for kids, homegrown athletes, right? And again, in this day and age, you say something like homegrown athletes, or does a school belong to the community where it's at? And how many foreign kids do you want? How many international students do you want? People get really, really focused on this is racist or these are racial things. And there might be elements of those things there, but they're also really legitimate questions if you have a school and especially these private Catholic schools and private Christian schools, like, that's not just their school community, that's their religion. And so you bring your kids, you help build this program, you invest your own money, you pay, you sell food at the concession stand and shovel walks and do all the stuff. And then there's no room for your kid because they have recruited either kids from outside of the area or kids from outside of the country. So that has been going on the entire time I've been covering high school sports. But now there's this question of like, whose responsibility? Like, what is really the purpose of these programs?
Before we catch a break, you referenced earlier the Trump administration, some pushback on this stuff, and obviously one of the main endeavors of the Trump administration has been to, clean up the borders and get people out of the country. I mean, we see it every night on the news. What sort of dynamic is that bringing into play here?
Well, I think it's making it's definitely created like America First type idea about athletics, right? These athletic programs are for American kids, and we've always had international students. And I would say we're better for it, right? But now there's a sentiment of like, we shouldn't have these are American schools, these are American programs, and we deserve to have these spots for American kids. And then there are people who say, hey, if American kids can't compete with international kids who come from places that they could probably not survive, then they're not the best and brightest, right? So there's these competing ideas. But I think 2 or 3 months into the Trump's the second administration, he actually limited or completely stopped F1 visa programs.
Oh, okay.
And that was disastrous for some of these schools. And so, I mean, like, we have schools here that those kids come and they pay a lot of money to come here, and they rely on that money, right? Those schools rely on that money. And that's from, that's K through 12, and that's also colleges. And so the bunch of school administrators and advocates and Congress people from across the country lobbied to get that policy reversed. But it's pretty dicey at this point. I mean, like, is it going to stay? Is it going to go? And this is happening right as the law that Utah passed limiting their access to varsity sports in high school is overturned as discriminatory. So, so I think there is this idea of who are these programs for? There's a racial element. There's this America First idea. There's is this discrimination? Our diversity and being a place the whole world wants to come. That makes us better. Right? But there are some, like Ed brought up, a legitimate issue that, we probably should grapple with, because, and that's my problem, is these are tough issues. They're really complicated.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot here.
A ton of nuance. And people just don't want to have that kind of conversation right now.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, there's so many just like reductive statements that people seem to believe encapsulates an entire issue. And it's like, no, it's not how it works.
Yeah, there's like, this is really hard. We're just not going to have foreign kids.
Yeah.
And that doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah. We're going to catch a quick break. Coming up next, Amy, I'm going to put this in your head and also tease this for the listeners. I've actually been wanting to talk to you about this specifically. So over the weekend in Cincinnati, another chant of F the Mormons broke out. And this has happened now in Arizona, in Oregon, Providence, Colorado, and Cincinnati joins the lists. The president of the university apologized today for it, but that's kind of how it goes. So I wanted to get your thoughts on like why this happens, why it seems to be more or less accepted and brushed off, because, and I don't love the whataboutisms and parallels, but I think there are a few here that we could actually dig into. And I think your insight will be good. So Amy Donaldson live in studio. Do want to tell you about my friends at Prize Picks. It's the holiday season now. It's the best time of year for sports, bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy and what to eat, which game to watch, there's one place where it feels good to be right, and that's with our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is now offering what is called early payouts. So if your lineup gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. My fantasy football season is basically done, but with Prize Picks, I do not have to wait until next year's draft. Prize Picks lets you play fantasy football every single week. You can pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections, no draft required. Here's what you do. You download that Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Remember, on Prize Picks, it's good to be right. More with Amy coming up next on ESPN 700. Amy Donaldson, one of our favorites, live in studio for an entire hour. Treat for us because it's been a number of months since Amy has graced us with her presence. All right, Amy, before we set you loose, we'll kind of revisit the pod and tease it so folks can, be prepared to snag it when it comes out. But when I saw you on the rundown today, I was excited because a couple of weeks ago, so we'll start here. Ryan McGee, who's a friend of the program. Ryan has been on the show, I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 times. I think Ryan's a really good college football personality. He's always seemed like a nice guy, and maybe this was just a swing and a miss. But this was November 11th, November 12th. Ryan does this kind of hokey little thing where at the end of the college football weekend, he does what's called the bottom 10. And it's not the 10 worst teams in college football. It's just like 10 bad losses, and you could be a good team. And he did this after BYU lost to Texas Tech. One of his teams that during that feature was BYU at number 5, and he said, legend has it that after the angel Moroni showed Joseph Smith the golden plates upon which the Mormon church was founded, he also warned Smith to make sure to heed the oft-forgotten inscription located on the scratched-up backside of the plates, quote, beware the coveted 5th spot, lest it bite you in the behind in Lubbock, okay? So a lot of people were upset about that.
Yeah, I saw that.
A lot of people on social media upset about that. Ryan, to his credit, apologized and changed it. And then over the weekend in Cincinnati, was BYU was playing Cincinnati, a group of fans were heard chanting F the Mormons during BYU's win over Cincinnati. So now Cincinnati joins fans in Colorado, in Arizona, in Oregon, Providence. It's happened a lot, and it just feels like it's accepted and brushed off after an apology is given. And look, I am one who believes that being offended is a choice, and you can choose to look the other way. But it's such a bad look, and it happens so much. And I do think we can actually draw some parallels that, if this was a Jewish chant and it was F the Jews, you might go to jail, whereas there really are no repercussions or ramifications. So why is it the LDS Church that seems to be fair game for all these football fans?
Well, I'm gonna invoke my husband here, who is
shout out Ed.
He's a diehard atheist. Grew up in New Jersey, did not grow up in Utah. But we went to a play years ago. I mean, maybe like 25 years ago. And there was a lot of fun being poked at the Mormon church. And he said he didn't laugh. He did not enjoy the play. And I was surprised. I said, what's going on? I grew up LDS, right? I do not practice. But I didn't like the play either, but I was surprised that he didn't like it. And he said, nowhere that I go would you be allowed to say those kinds of things about a religion and not be seen as a religious bigot. And I think that, first of all, I think we've accepted a lot of bigotry of late that we should not be accepting. And so there are a lot of things that once were left unsaid that, or said in your private racist group that are now being screamed at in arenas and on street corners and being said on television.
Yep.
But I think it's always been, when a man drove his truck into a Mormon church and shot people to death, some people burned to death, there was a debate about whether or not Mormons were Christians.
Yeah.
I don't care what you think.
Right.
That to have that discussion in that moment, again, told me just there is this a little bit of hatred. Now, these were people who were run out of the state where they were. They were, I remember going to see the Carthage jail when I was driving my daughter dropping her to Ohio State. And I said, one of the reasons I wanted to see it was this is a country that, one of the most treasured amendments is the First Amendment, which is, freedom of religion, freedom of speech. And Joseph Smith, like him or not, believe he's a prophet or not, was murdered for his religious views, right? And so, as was his brother. And so I thought, those are things in history. I don't care what religion you're talking to. I've seen the site where Martin Luther King preached, did the bus sit-ins. I've been to all the sites in this country where we profess to care about these things, this freedom of speech and freedom of religion, but we don't really actually always do it very well, right? And I think this is just another case of that. And I think, again, I think there are a lot of things that are being said and done right now that were unacceptable. But there has been, I remember when Mitt Romney was running, And Mike Huckabee was on television talking about how he wasn't a Christian.
Yep.
And, you know, and there was this big debate about that. And what you can, for me, it's, people talk to me about, like, well, what is the difference between complimenting a woman and sexually harassing a woman? Okay. And I said, well, you can say to someone, you look nice today. But if you say, oh, your butt looks great in those jeans, that's sexual harassment.
Fair enough.
Once you start taking a person and reducing them to, you know, a trait or a body part or something like that, you're in dangerous territory. Get out, right? I would say that same thing about. I think we need to challenge institutions of power, and religions are institutions of power. But there's a way to do it that is, even with satire, I think can be respectful. But when you start using caricatures of things that are sacred to people, that are elements of their faith, you're in dangerous territory. It doesn't mean you can't do it, because we live in America. But you should be asking yourself if you should.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I think that the spreading of this is, they can apologize all they want. There's a segment of people, and a segment of college football fans, and a segment of arts fans, and political people who just see Mormons as less than. Like, they think they're totally fine making fun of them.
You know, and this comes off the heels. So BYU raised like $270,000 or something, like, and donated.
The largest single donation that the Cincinnati Food Bank has ever received.
And it went to the Cincinnati Food Bank from these people from Brigham Young, who I would imagine at least 95% of them are LDS.
Listen, there's a
and these are the chants.
Do you remember there was I think it was the barber or it was somebody affiliated.
Texas Tech. It was the
Texas
team barber.
Tech, yeah.
Yes.
How much money did they raise from? When this gentleman drove his truck into that church house,
I'm looking it up right now.
And murdered these people when they were and shot children, right? The Mormons turned around and raised money.
$108,000
for the barber.
Correct. Yes.
But they turned around. They raised money for the family of the man who killed these people.
Right. Exactly.
And it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was a ton of. The kid had a very seriously ill son. Maybe he had a disability. I can't remember. But and that's happened repeatedly. And every college trip they've gone on. And listen, there's a legitimate criticism of the Mormon church, like the hierarchy of church, and maybe even you could have debates about doctrine. But you can't take issue with the fact that they do more good. I've not seen another like college football team. They do service projects. I mean, I saw Brighton. I delivered Thanksgiving food on Saturday. I know Real Salt Lake was involved in Brighton High football, Brighton High's basketball or football team was there. So this is a thing that's in sports. Like, do some good. You have this platform. You have this. You bring a community together in one way. Deliver something back to them, and that's something that BYU takes. And this year I've seen it increase exponentially.
Yeah.
These food bank deliveries. I know there was also I don't remember what school it was, that they delivered when they were playing them. I believe it was football, but there had been a storm, and there was a bunch of, and they brought a bunch of donations in.
Yeah.
Like, they show up without being asked, and in a lot when SNAP benefits were cut back. I know my nephew he's an airman at Hill Air Force Base, and the Mormons opened the Bishop Storehouse in northern Utah and said any active duty family was welcome to come there. Didn't have to be Mormons. So listen, you can have your issues with any group of people, but I think the hatred, that this idea that you can just be hateful is just, it's everywhere. And I don't think that's going away until you get to the root of, until you make it a shameful thing to do.
Let me clean a couple of things up. So ahead of the BYU Cincinnati game, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints sent a 27,000-pound food donation for Cincinnati's on-campus Bearcats Pantry to support students facing food insecurity, as you referenced, the largest ever. And then the number that BYU and their fans raised for the Texas Tech football team barber, Ivan Ortiz, whose wife, Maddie, was critically injured in an accident caused by a drunk driver, was $180,000. They changed our lives.
Yeah.
And so, like, look,
you've had major medical bills.
Sure,
I've had my daughter's had open heart surgery.
And to your point, like, yes, there are certain things about the dynamic of the LDS Church that probably should be called out and talked about. And I believe in speaking truth to power, and the tax-free status that religions enjoy, and then they raise money and they invest money, and are they doing enough? I don't know. There are certain things that I think are fair to talk about. But when it comes to the culture of LDS people, I, like you, was raised in it. I, like you, am no longer actively involved in it. But my experience with the majority of LDS people have been they're good, family-oriented people that just want to do well in their community.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the reason that Utah leads in volunteerism is because the Mormon Church is stationed here.
So why does this religion seem to be the brunt of so many jokes, and it seems to be so widely accepted to mock them out loud?
Well, I think one thing you said if you said this about the Jewish religion, you'd probably get dragged.
You're going to jail.
Security.
Yes.
Yeah, you'd certainly get kicked out, right? So first of all, there are no ramifications in the moment. So nobody sees this as and I think my theory has been, and this, I'm not an expert in this, but they're a younger religion. They're not older.
Sure.
They're not, so you don't have that, put the fear of there's a reason that some of these older religions have, they either have respect or they've been through it or whatever. This is a younger religion. It has been, they have been persecuted, and they have been the persecutor. So there have been controversies about that, right? So there's a lot to debate about ground level stuff. But I think there's also a lot made of things that people find odd, right? But honestly, you could take any religion, and you will find things that I remember. I've visited many churches in my time, and part of that was one of the jobs I did was to talk to people about their faith, and talk to where does faith intersect in your life, right? And there were so many times where I thought, this is so weird, right? It's weird to me because I didn't grow up doing it. It's not weird to the people doing it. And the same could be said of some of the Mormon traditions. But somehow, culturally, when you look at Book of Mormon musical, which I actually had issues with because of the racial issues, but you look at the ways in which they're made fun of, and they satirize it, right? I think even locally, I think it's just and even the politics, like when Mitt Romney was running, and when Mitt Romney voted to impeach Donald Trump, all of those things boiled up again.
Yep.
And I think there's just this sort of, feeling amongst people that it's okay to hate them, and it's okay to express it.
Yeah.
I think there are people who feel that way about other religions too. It's just that it's not as universally accepted.
Yeah.
And so I think if you had been yelling "F the Jews" at a Jewish school or something like that, those students would have been removed. There would have been action taken in the moment. But I don't know why those things aren't handled in the moment. There are a lot, but there's a lot of hate in a lot of situations that I've seen handled well, and for everything from racism amongst fans to, just people yelling murderous, horrible, violent things.
Sure, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, and I think the thing to ask that this conference needs to have a discussion about is this a thing that you're just willing to just tolerate and accept apologies for, or is this creating real danger for people?
Yeah,
right?
I don't think it's acceptable on any level. And look, to your point, certainly the divisive rhetoric in our country has risen over the past 8-9 years or so, to the point where, the way I heard it phrased recently was like the great disinhibitor, right? Like if you're getting permission from leadership in our country because they're saying divisive, hateful things at all time, then it kind of disinhibits you from holding back things that you should hold back if they're offensive and hurtful to other people. And maybe this is just another example of that.
100%. And I have we've had these debates maybe like the last 6 or 8 years, amongst friends who, I am a fan of the First Amendment. It is protects my job, right? Like I have to believe in it.
We all have to. In this business, we have to.
Yeah. But I will say this. There's a difference between being honest and being rude.
Yes, well said.
Does the world need to know what it is you feel? Or do you need to just keep that to yourself?
Yeah.
That information for you inside that your therapist would say, maybe journal. Talk to your therapist about.
Yeah.
But I just think there's this idea that like people say, I'm being honest or I'm just a straight shooter. When in fact, all you really are is rude. It's sort of like people who say, my dog's friendly. When in fact, their dog is not friendly. Their dog is just not disciplined. It just runs crazy, right? And I think that's the same situation here. People are like, fans get to do, and we've had these debates among fans, fans get to do whatever they want. And they can taunt, and they can be rude, and they can. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You can do that. The question is, should you do that? And what kind of environment do you want to create? These are young people playing, right? At the end of the day, I mean, there was a big controversy about the Utah kicker warming up
It's
during
beyond
the prayer
stupid.
at BYU. And again, it blew up into this big controversy. People were, insulting each other. And I often ask myself, like, if our debate, if our discussion about this is more toxic than the thing that happened, we're doing it wrong. And that's that. I just think that religion, politics, race, like I said about my project, these are things that require consideration.
Yeah.
They require nuance. And we are not very good at either one of those things right now.
Yeah, well said. And, there are certain differences in all of these scenarios and dynamics and situations, because you brought up earlier one of the other dumb things that we're doing in this country is you have to take a side and then your feet are in the cement and you're not willing to talk to the other party or you're not willing to have conversation. And so I think we have to talk about all these things a little bit differently. The Dylan Curtis thing, when Dylan was warming up during the pregame prayer at BYU, that was the most cowardly thing of Mike Lee to do. That was pathetic. To paint it as if this kid was doing that intentionally. And because Mike Lee was the one who decided to pile on, because of course it was Mike freaking Lee, the poor kid was bullied all weekend to the point where he felt like he had to apologize. And all he was doing, the coaches said, okay, it's your time to go warm up, head on out there. It's not like he waited for the prayer to start and then headed out on the field. This, to me, Amy, is a situation, I said earlier, being offended is a choice. This was the wrong choice by that crowd to pile on this kid because there was no harm there at all.
Yeah, and I also think that, people were saying, it's disrespectful to come to someone's house and then be disrespectful in a ceremony. Well, first of all, again, like I said, you don't always know what ceremonies are sacred. You don't always know what matters, right? And so, again, I think that you have a choice about how you respond to things.
Yeah.
And I think when you're responding, again, in a more toxic way than the thing that happened, but that is our habit now. There are no molehills. Everything is a mountain.
Yeah.
Everything is, we're going to war. This is it. We're done. After Charlie Kirk was murdered, the thing I feared most was that it was going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
This just was going to become the norm. But we're doing that every single day with our words. There's so much hate. Look, how many times have you seen someone get spit on, stepped on? This every weekend I watch college football and professional football, and I'm just disgusted at what you see. And from the college kids, like you can make some argument. I think it was Boise State and Colorado State that had incidents, and the kid just wrote this really long apology, and I just thought and it was a heartfelt apology. It felt sincere, right? But again, what are we doing that somehow you think that I have never once in my life thought I think I could spit on somebody, and I've been super mad.
Yeah.
And
why is that behavior okay?
What is happening to us that you said about the D inhibitor or whatever?
Yeah, the great disinhibitor.
Disinhibitor, yeah. But and maybe that's what's happening.
Yeah.
But I feel like we need to grow more compassion and more consideration. I don't understand why it's so difficult to just listen to what someone else is experiencing, understand how it feels to them, and just be considerate.
Yeah.
Why is that such a massive ask?
Yeah, and
it's not you can still be honest. You just don't need to be rude.
Right, and I think what you said earlier about we don't need to hear all of your opinions, and I wonder how much of this is social media, where this generation was raised on No, you feel a certain way. You go to your Facebook page, you go to your Instagram, you go, and then you're able to express yourself. And look, a lot of that is good because you do want to have the ability to express yourself, and you should be allowed to, as we talked about with the First Amendment. But we don't need to hear all of your opinions and all of your feelings. There are some things that you should just keep to yourself.
Well, and I think, people are always like, well, but you go to a sporting event and things are heated. And I mean, I've been writing my column again, and I've been looking for things to write about that are counter this. Because, I mean, like, I was at the BYU Utah game, and, everybody was criticizing them for storming the field, And again, like,
life's short. Storm the field, man.
My thing is this, like, when did we start to police each other's joy
so
100%.
So right? I agree with that so much.
It turned out my cousin, her father has dementia.
Okay.
And she said everything we do with him, it's probably the last time we're doing it because he is gone. Like physically he's here, mentally he's not. So he said, he comes to the game. He's been to a million of these games, and he said, I don't really know where I'm at, but I know I'm with my family, right?
Yeah.
And they took him down in the field, and he kept trying to pay his fine. Like, it was just – but for me, it was this moment of, like, you don't really know if somebody's enjoying themselves, this kid warming up, or, these players doing whatever they're doing. You just give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Just try it. If you feel angry about somebody else doing something so minor – maybe you need to go see a therapist.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe you need to check yourself,
Yeah.
because I just think if we just asked a little bit more of ourselves in compassion and not a show. I don't want to hear about it on your Facebook page. I just want you to just let an insult go.
Yeah.
Or somebody is saying something nasty about somebody else, just say, hey, can you stop that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to watch it.
Let's
just chill out and enjoy the game. Everybody can enjoy the game. I don't understand why nobody's checking this. How so many people are willing to ignore it. That's the thing. Sitting next to those people, sitting in a crowd, somebody starts chanting that. Chant starts with one or two people.
Right.
Somebody starts chanting it. How that spreads, and loving and kindness and consideration can't spread.
Yeah. No, it's well said. I don't know. I've just been thinking about this a lot recently. I wonder if you experience this the same way I do as somebody who was raised in the faith and no longer active in it. It made me angry. I was like mad about it, because those are my people. Like, I came from this community. I'm cut from this cloth. I don't have to be actively involved in it to care about the people that I was raised with and raised by and raised around.
Yeah. I just think any public display of hatred, I feel like it makes people a target.
But did this strike you? Like, did it hit close to home to you? I know your point about any sort of expression of hate in public.
It's not any different to me than it didn't feel any worse to me than any other religious or racial bigotry that I have witnessed. And I feel like that these are all related. I really think the BYU specific one it does have roots. It has a long tail. It goes back to the 70s, right? And I think that it's always been sort of accepted that it's okay to be bigoted when it comes to LDS people.
Yeah.
And so I think my sadness is that it's just another way in which we are showing what horrible. I mean, as my dad would say, you're showing your butt, but we're just it's the worst of us.
Yeah.
And every time somebody says, well, this isn't us, or this, and I start at this point,
sure?
I'm saying, this is us.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
Okay. If this is happening over and over and over, and the way of dealing with it is to just apologize after and ask BYU to take it, and ask BYU not to get upset or offended.
Yeah.
And ask them not to be who they are. Right. That to me is where we have to really say, like, this isn't just like a sporting event issue. It's not. We have to do better. And so what do we do? And if I was in conference leadership, if I was the AD of any of these schools, I would be saying, how do we fix this?
Yeah.
Right? This is not deserved. It is racial. It is religious bigotry. And it's also just unpleasant and unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's not like, there's chants that people have that I don't like, because I'm a person who says, cheer for your team. Don't taunt the other team. There are people who love to taunt, right? And so we've we've had this debate in our newsroom many times, right? So they want to taunt. But when you start, and Pablo and I talked about this, it's what led to him doing what he did when he was a player at Colorado and they played RSL.
Yeah.
When you start talking to somebody about their culture or their identity or something they care about or their family, when you start running that down and insulting it and talking and taunting them and trying to hurt them, not just get in their head or bother them so that you can beat them in a game. When you really want to hurt them, I think you need to look in the mirror, and I think we all need to do better, and we all need to say, like, if this is happening in our community, what is going on, and how do we fix that?
No, words matter. Decency matters. Decorum matters. And, I think for me with this job, I've really, come to a different understanding of how to cover certain things and talk about certain things because of the way that words affect people. And when you're talking into a microphone for 4 hours, 5 days a week, you have a choice to use your platform for good or use it for bad. I'm sure in the past I haven't necessarily, used it for all of the great things and probably learned some hard lessons that way. But words matter; they really do.
We all have, but that's part of evolving, right? You make a mistake, you look in the mirror, you say, "Hey, we don't want to be this. We don't want to do this," right? Yep. And again, you do have a choice, and whether you're one person sitting in an audience at a football game or you're a guy with a microphone 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, you put something out. You give permission to be ugly, or you tell people, "Hey, I'm not going to accept that around me. Like, I can't control the world, but I control this little section of it."
Yeah. No, well said. Always great stuff, Amy. It's been too long. All right, before I say you loose, let's get a little tease here. We got a little project coming out, coming up in the spring.
Coming up in the spring, another podcast, another narrative podcast. Actually going to have 2 podcasts, I think, in the next one I might be able to talk to you about in a couple of months.
Very nice.
Yeah, working on lots of stuff and, still helping the dogs find their homes.
Of course you are.
Please adopt, don't shop. If you PetSmart, Petco, they have events every single weekend with all the rescues. So there's lots of dogs in need of homes.
Dog energy is the best energy, as I've always said. Great to see you, my friend. Let's do it again soon, okay?
We could learn a lot from the dogs.
Yes, we could. I truly believe that. We'll catch a break. College football coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. All right, got a little Monday Night Football coming your way. The final game of the pro football weekend will come your way after a quick break. It's the Niners and the Panthers from Santa Clara. Niners starting to get healthy, although they did lose Fred Warner for the year, unfortunately. I think they're a 7.5-point favorite over the Panthers tonight. That over-under is about 49.5. Listener that doesn't like it when I say 49.5. Levi Stadium, Santa Clara, California. How about your Cowboys showing a little dog, huh? Getting a win over the Eagles. That's not nothing.
They got some fight. You say football gods were a little bit on their side last night, as they sometimes have to be for comebacks like that to happen. But yeah, to go down 21-zip and then end up winning that football game against a divisional opponent, that was about as big as it gets as far as trying to kind of remain in the picture. And I'm pleased. I'm stoked about that, at least in a vacuum.
Yeah, for sure. That was a little gut check time for your boys. The Los Angeles Rams are now the favorite to win the Super Bowl after dismantling the Bucs on Sunday Night Football. Matt Stafford is your favorite to win the MVP. So that was your Sunday night game. But yeah, we'll get a little Niners-Panthers coming up after a quick break. So just a reminder, reminder this week, we have one more live show. That will be tomorrow. And then we're going to do a best of on Wednesday. You'll have some national programming on Friday. And we'll be back on Monday, hopefully dissecting a Utah football victory over Kansas. Porter, real quick, some good stuff today from Amy Donaldson. I always like your insight, too, if you care to add to the conversation, is, we talked about the Ryan McGee stuff. Ryan's a friend of the show, and actually I think he's a really good college football personality, but a little bit of a misstep there, just simply mocking the LDS faith. And now the crowd at Cincinnati has joined crowds in Colorado. He's joined crowds. They've joined crowds in Colorado, Arizona. It happened during a basketball game, happened in Providence. It's happened, I don't know, like 8, 9, 10 times over the past year or so. College football fans and basketball fans utilizing this F the Mormons chant. And I don't get it. I don't understand why it appears to be so acceptable with not a lot of repercussions. Of course, the Cincinnati president came out and apologized. But what are your thoughts on this thing that's kind of permeated through BYU games over the past few years?
It's obviously on its own just a completely unacceptable display of bigotry from people that, mostly 18-year-old kids who are at a student section, chant gets going and they're liquored up at whatever, right? But at the same token, those are things that directed at like another generalized group of people, you would be thrown out of the stadium. You'd be, there'd be news stories all over about it. It would be up in arms about it. And it's just, it's an unacceptable display on its face. And then I told you about this. It's mind bending for me as someone who, I'm not an active LDS church member, but my direct lineage is very connected to this very thing. And the reason I bring out like the generalization standpoint is because a lot of the reason behind the vilification of any group, minority groups, religious groups, the vilification of them is usually brought on by a very select few group of people, right? That somehow, some way speak for the others or are cast as such. In this situation, it's, some violence in the Chicago and Illinois and Ohio areas. I talked to you about this. My third great-grandfather ran a gang. They were stealing from stagecoaches. They were robbing and all sorts of things up and down the Mississippi River in Illinois, in Ohio, in Iowa, to the point where they got ran out of town. And a lot of this stuff that they were doing, including what was described then as an assassination of a colonel, Davenport, it was just a robbery. They just wanted his gold. But because these folks were like affiliated with the Mormon church, a lot of the stuff that they were doing got put upon this whole group of people, this whole religion. And still to this day, we see what I would say is like generational miseducation about it. And, it's unfortunate to see. It's unacceptable. But I do think there is a part of the folks in Provo and the LDS folks around us that I hope just brushes it off. It's unacceptable, but at the same time, at a certain point, you just have to stop worrying about what people think of you.
Yeah, and I do feel like being offended is a choice that you can make. I feel like this happens way too much. I mean, it should never happen at all, but I don't know. It's funny you reference like the miseducation of people. And look, there's some oddities with the culture of the LDS, faith, but there are oddities for every religion. I can remember being in Sunday school and hearing about like Jonah living in some whale's belly for 3 days, and that comes from the Bible. Like most every single religion has really odd founding stories or allegories or whatever that just are strange. I don't know, man. I can remember, I have this experience of being an 11-year-old kid living and growing up in Salt Lake, and then suddenly picked up and planted in the middle of the Northeast, where at the time LDS membership was super low. Like I remember one of my first days in school, this kid coming up to me, he's like, "Hey, my dad said you guys can't go to restaurants on Friday nights." And I was like,
what?
I was like, what? Like, where are you coming up with this stuff? So maybe a lot of it is just simply misinformation, miseducation.
No, I mean, I think a lot of it is. And it's also that through the course of 100 years. And now it's not as serious because it's not as real, right? We're not talking about these things that happened 5 years ago or recently. It's 150 years ago. So it's funny. It's not. Using the realities of 150, 200 years ago to go at a football team, a bunch of 18 to 20-year-old football players or cheerleaders or whoever you're yelling at from the stands. I don't know. Find a different way to do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Ultimately, I do believe it's a culture that is comprised of very kind people that try to do good things in the community and care about their families. So we'll leave it there. Got to catch a break because we want to bring you Monday Night Football. Porter, what's coming up on a Tuesday edition of the show?
CK, Chris Camerani joins the program, of course, in studio for an entire hour. We always like to catch up with our guy CK, our guy Bill Riley, voice of the Utes. We'll stop by on a Tuesday show. I believe our guy Smitty will stop by as well. And Andy Larson of the Salt Lake Tribune. Some exciting stuff on the front for those guys over there. We'll chat with them about that and more.
Yes, indeed. Good Tuesday show. We'll say goodnight. Special thank you, Scott Mitchell, Stevenson, Sylvester, and Amy Donaldson. If you missed any of the sound from the show today, you go to the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. ESPN 700 app, available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Then for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, we'd ask you, if you like the show, to become a supporter of our podcast page. And we're wherever you get your shows, whether it's Apple or Google or Stitcher or Spotify. Just subscribe, rate, review. If you say nice things in the comments and give us all the stars, it actually helps. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Niners, Panthers coming your way. Monday Night Football. Keep it right here on ESPN 700.